and we're going to put it up and all that because it's important. I want to say this, and just introducing Dr. Frank, I want to say this. First of all, I want to thank him for what he does, traveling all over the country, fighting this fight with lawmakers, the governors, and secretaries of state, and trying to get our elections fixed where we will know that they are secure. And I told somebody the other day, I said, Dr. Frank is not, he can't do it alone, but he is a huge, huge piece to fixing this puzzle. And I've been in, I don't know, 3 or 4 of his meetings. And I just want to say this. It's not just, Dr. Frank's a scientist and he's a smart guy. It's not just his brain that's involved in this. It's his heart. He loves Jesus. He loves our country. And we're getting fewer and fewer of those kind of people around that love Jesus and love our country enough to, change your entire life to try to save the country. So just know that Dr. Frank is a patriot. He's a Christian first, I know that, but he's a patriot. And the fact that he would come to our little church here in Lee County, Alabama, and go anywhere, he will go anywhere, and try to wake up Americans to the truth of what's really going on. And I first met him down in Coffee County, and I was sitting beside him. A bunch of us met at a coffee shop, and I sat beside him, and I was looking at his computer when he was showing this stuff, and I was like, oh my, it's worse than I thought. Our elections are manipulated. They are tampered with. They are toyed with. And, we had an election. I don't know if you may know about this election that happened 4 years ago down in Conecuh County, where the sheriff, I knew the guy running for sheriff, lost by 1 vote. And when they really dug into the election, they found out he really won, but they handed it to the Democrat for 4 years, delayed it in court until the 4 years were over. Can't do anything. The guy, a conservative guy that could have stopped a lot of crime that was going on there, did not get in over 1 vote. And they manipulated about 150 to make sure that he didn't get in. So don't tell me it's not going on. It's going on in every county in Alabama, and it's going on in races that you think are insignificant or small, but the sheriff of a county is a big deal. So, but I'm going to open in prayer and turn it over to Dr. Frank, and just know this, that he needs prayer. It's a lot of spiritual warfare. He's going to tell you some things about what he believes is coming in November, and, things could get really dicey in the days ahead. So we need to pray for him. We need to pray for our president, our nation, and pray that this get fixed. Because here's the thing, and this I believe is not exaggeration. If we don't fix this, our country's gone as we know it. So it's that important. It's not exaggeration at all. So let's pray. Father in heaven, we come before you today knowing, God, that you worked a lot of miracles through a lot of people to bring this nation into being, to maintain it. And even with all the faults we have as a nation, the fact that we have freedom to worship you as we so choose, freedom to vote for who we want to vote for, freedom to run for office, Lord, and those freedoms are slipping away. Our elections have been hijacked. We know that, and manipulated. God, we ask for your mercies, for your help, for your intervention like you intervened during the Revolutionary War and thereafter. We need you, Lord. And I pray right now for Dr. Frank. I know that it's very exhausting traveling this country, speaking in place after place after place, being away from his family. Lord, I thank you that he's a patriot. He's a man of God, that he loves you and he loves our country. And I ask for your blessing upon him, your anointing upon him. I ask for your protection around him. I pray, God, that you use him mightily. And Lord, we pray for our president that, Lord, he will do whatever is necessary to save our country. I pray all of this in Jesus' name. Amen. Dr. Frank.
Thank you, sir. 1, 2, 3. I'll turn it on. That ought to work. 1, 2, 3. Yes, it's going to be streaming on Rumble.
FGC on Rumble, Dean Odle Ministries on Facebook, deanodle.org, live stream. Okay.
I asked Pastor Dean how we were going to start this, and I said, are you going to open in prayer? And do you want a pledge? He said, yeah, let's have a pledge. So let's stand up and say the Pledge of Allegiance too while we're doing this. If you would stand with me. I'll start us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. That's nice. The slide I had up here, this is from the Capitol building of Wisconsin. I've been in a lot of Capitol buildings over the last 6 years. This is my favorite. It's a huge mosaic. You can tell it's in the dome of the building. It's a mosaic. It has about 200,000 pieces of glass in it. And what it is, it has a picture of Lady Liberty pointing to heaven, because that's the source of our liberty. That's our inspiration. God gave us inspiration for liberty. What's she doing with her other hand? Protecting the ballot box, because that's how we protect our liberty. And that's where you folks have failed. You are not protecting your ballot box anymore. And if it sounds like I'm wagging my finger at you, I'm wagging it at me too, because I was asleep all those years too. My friend, I mentioned Pastor Dean, Dave Bryan out in Central California, he also got a Pentecostal church out there. He says he preaches to himself and he lets other people listen. So if it sounds like I'm coming on strong to you, I'm really talking to myself, because I was asleep until 2020 as well. I also just came back from South Korea. I was there for 2 weeks observing their election. I was there at the request of their former prime minister, and it is related to you in a way that's going to shake you to your bones, and I'm going to have to tell you about that, so I'm going to talk about that today. But I also want to show you your own election data from your own county, Lee County. Your county is a disaster, okay? But it's not your fault directly. It's indirectly your fault because you let other people run your elections. You're also letting other people teach your children. And you're also letting other people run your government. And you're also letting other people run your elections. No wonder you're a wreck. Not just you. The whole country's like that. Everybody sat back and let other people do this. That's why we're in the mess we're in. I like what Plato said. Plato said, the penalty for refusing to get involved in politics is you end up being governed by your inferiors. Okay? And guess where we are? That's exactly where we are. So anyway, a lot of you haven't heard me before, I don't think. I'm going to try to tell you a lot of stuff. I got 4 hours I can go. How long do you want me to go? I have a lot to tell you. I'm gonna try to condense it, but I'm going to give you a few of the core things, the most important things. I think a lot of people, when they first see my presentations, it's a red pill experience for them, because you're going to wake up to some things I think you don't understand. And I'm going to try to change that. And I like what Lincoln said. He says he's a firm believer in the people. If given the truth, which is what I'm going to be showing you today, they can be depended upon to meet any national crisis. The great point is to bring them the real facts. We are headed for a huge crisis. November is going to be pivotal. I've been telling everybody for over a year, November is going to be a civil rights, civil riots, constitutional crisis in this country. November this year is going to be that way. And that's why you hear so much about elections coming from the president right now. He's moving the Overton window, which is what you're allowed to talk about in public, into the public discussion to get you ready for what's about to happen in November. It's a big deal, and I'll explain what that is. And I can't believe... Let's give you a little testimony about myself for a second. So I grew up on an Angus ranch in Northern California. My parents, my mom was the chemistry prize winner at Shasta College, and my dad was the class president. So that's where I got my interest in science. from my mom, and I got my big mouth. Yeah, what's up? Oh, you want me to turn this up? Okay, gotcha. And my dad was the class president. That's where I got my big mouth. So I can talk to you for hours. God made me this way. All who I am, God made me that way. He has a funny first name. It's Giwana. It's my middle name. It's Cherokee. It means big black horse. I have a lot more Cherokee blood than she has. It means big black horse. You can just call me Stud. It's easier. I grew up in Northern California on an Angus ranch, and you could see what it looked like back in those days. When we remember in the 70s, we had long hair, but that was me. And people said, "Well, how did you become a scientist then?" And the answer is I was driving the hay truck because you were allowed to drive heavy equipment when you were young. I was 14 years old, and they were closing the library down on one side of town and move it to the other side. And they put all the books out, and nobody ever checked out. And the Feynman lectures on physics were there, and I read them that summer, and I've been a physicist ever since. I really love physics. I'm also a musician. I mentioned before I was a church music minister for 40 years. And when I was in college, I played in the symphony in Santa Barbara. That's not the symphony, but you get an idea. I got my PhD there at the University of California, Santa Barbara in surface electrochemistry. And then as a young professor, a young academic, I got accepted a grant, and I ended up in Ohio, and I've been there since 1986. It worked out really well for me. They gave me $1 million grant to have my own laboratory. I made a major scientific discovery. I got nominated for a Nobel Prize in chemistry, 60 scientific peer-reviewed publications, science, leading cover articles on the leading journals in the world. Why do I tell you that? Because I want you to know I'm a real scientist. Okay, I don't just say I'm a scientist. I'm a real scientist. I'm legit. But I left academics because it was too woke for me. I couldn't handle it, and that was in 1996 when I left academia, and that was in Cincinnati. And what did Mark Twain say about Cincinnati? He says, when the end of the world comes, he wants to be in Cincinnati because it's always 10 years behind the times. So if you knew that, I left the academics in 1996 because it was too woke for me, I'm a pretty conservative guy. I'm very conservative. I have been married 44 years to my lovely bride, and I have 3 beautiful children. My oldest daughter, Nellie, has Down syndrome. She's awesome. She's like an amazing gift from God for us. And my daughter-in-law is going to give me my first grandbaby this December, so I'm pretty happy about that. Yeah. So since I'm in church and it's on Sunday, I just want to give you one little sliver of my testimony. So when I was in high school, I was really struggling. Not with my faith. I've always believed in God. But I had questions, and nobody could answer them, and my pastor couldn't answer them. It's a good thing C.S. Lewis was out there because I read just about everything he ever wrote. It helped show me that Christians aren't stupid. But most of the people I would ask questions they couldn't answer. And I was struggling. I'm a young scientist, all the debates between science and faith, and I needed help. So I had a scholarship to Stanford for physics. I had a scholarship to UC Davis, University of California, Davis, to be a large animal vet, because the smartest guy I knew was a vet. So I thought that's what I wanted to be. And then I had a scholarship to Music Academy of the West for opera, because I sang opera for a few years, and I'm a music guy. And music and science go together. And I couldn't, but I had all these questions, and I couldn't decide what I was going to do. So I decided I was going to go to Bible college for 1 year, and I was going to find out all the answers, and then I was going to go, and I found Westmont College in Santa Barbara, a Christian liberal arts school, and I was at very high academics, and I picked out my victim professor who was going to be, I was going to ask him all the hard questions. And I remember sitting in his office hours, started asking him questions, and he just looked at me and says, Doug, he says, how come, hey, haven't you ever read Augustine? Haven't you ever read Pascal? Haven't you ever read Newton, Boyle, Maxwell, Faraday? I can go on. And it's like, well, no. See, we think there's a conflict between science and faith in our culture because nobody reads what the scientists actually wrote. They read about what the scientists did. Just go ahead, read Newton. The introduction to his book, Principia, probably the most important book in physics ever written, is dedicated to God and his worship of God. He sees his science as his worship of God. There's no conflict there. In fact, Newton wrote more on Christology than he wrote on science. Okay, did you ever learn that? But you learned Newton's laws, didn't you? Okay, or if you read Copernicus, you know about the revolutions of the planets, revolution he boosts. But did you realize he was a priest? And in the introduction to the Revolution books, he wrote, and I memorized it in college that year, he wrote, to know the mighty works of God, to comprehend his wisdom and majesty and power, to appreciate in degree, that's my favorite part, to appreciate in degree the wonderful workings of his laws. Surely all this must be a pleasing and acceptable mode of worship to the Most High, to whom ignorance cannot be more grateful than knowledge. These scientists didn't see science in opposition to God. They saw their science as their means of worshiping God. When you explore nature, you're exploring creation. And a simple example I give is my special needs daughter, Nellie. When I go home, she always does a little painting for me, with crayons, a little drawing. And she gives it to me, Daddy. And I don't just take it and set it down. Thank you, honey. No. I sit her on my lap. We look at it together. Oh, you painted a tree. Oh, yeah, it has brown bark and green leaves and the sky is blue. What am I doing? I'm communing with her. I'm fellowshipping with her about her creation that she gave me. That's what I do when I'm doing science. I'm communing with God. I'm sitting on his lap. Oh, isn't that cool the way you made that tree, God? You got xylem and phloem and chloroplast and respiration. And isn't it interesting how the atmosphere works and the right kind of light makes it to the chloroplast? And, in other words, it's not in opposition at all. My science and faith go right together. So anyway, I need you to know I'm a real Christian, and I go around the country talking about science and faith. In fact, the last 6 weeks I've preached 3 Sunday mornings. I could have preached here, except I was driving up. But I keep the sermons fun, though, and I'm keen to keep today fun for you as well. And just to give you an example of how it's fun, I sometimes like reading the Bible as a scientist would. Thinking about it. And so like Jesus' first miracle in Cana when he converts water to wine, people always kind of gloss over that one. Slow down. Water is H2O, 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen, 18 grams per mole. Wine is mostly water, but it's about 14% ethanol. That's what makes it fun. The alcohol, the ethanol, right? Okay. And that's C2, has 2 carbons, H5OH. So where did the carbon atoms come from? He started with oxygen and hydrogen, and he ends up with carbon, oxygen, hydrogen. Well, that's a nuclear reaction to make oxygen atoms into carbon atoms. In fact, it takes about 4 Hiroshima bombs worth of energy. I've done the calculation for him to do that miracle. That's a pretty serious miracle. People get all freaked out about Jesus raising somebody from the dead. That's nothing. Little electricity. You can raise anybody from the dead. Water to wine, now that is a serious miracle. So it's fun to kind of look at it. I like joking about it. I like keeping it fun and light. And, dealing with questions like I don't live far from Ken Ham's Creation Museum and the Ark and whatnot. And so I would have to deal with these questions. But I could go on and on, but that's not the topic of today. But I just wanted to give a little testimony since it's Sunday and since a little more about who I am, what I'm doing. All right. I think that's enough about me. I think I gave you you know who I am. All right, let me tell you one more thing about me, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about Korea, and then I want to connect it to Alabama and I'll show you your own stuff. And what I want you to do, I'm not just going to come here and tell you got a problem. I'm going to show you what to do, because I know what to do. Because I've been doing this 6 years all over the country, and I know what works, and I know what doesn't work. Hey, Wayne. But too many people are doing things that don't work. So what you need to know about me is that I'm a modeler. And ever since college, 79, 80, 81, right in there, I discovered Fourier transforms and I discovered differential equations, and I've been addicted ever since. I love applying mathematics to the real world and to the social world and elections. And I started predicting every election, every presidential election since 1980, and I succeeded. I predicted every one until 2020. I even predicted Trump was going to be president in 2016, 13 months in advance, when there were 17 people in the primary. And I put all my predictions on social media and showed everybody why I thought that. The odds were 2-1 that it was going to be Trump, and people thought I was insane, but I was right. And the odds were 20-1 that he was going to win in 2020. And he didn't win, and I was at complete loss. I didn't know what happened. How could I miss? I've been right my whole life, and suddenly I was way off. What could have happened? So anyway, I model climate. And I modeled sunspots. I modeled COVID. In fact, that's what made me famous around the country during 2020. I was modeling the number of people dying in every county in America. Every week, you could go to my websites to find out how many people are going to die in your county that week. It sounds morbid, but it's all mathematics, and it's pretty predictable. I was doing 30 countries. That's what kind of made me famous nationally. People joke about that. They say, Dr. Frank, you have a graph for everything. And you're right. That should be my new motto. I have a graph for that. And because I don't just study the surface things, I get to the bottom of it. Okay. Okay. All right. So I could go on and joke, but I think you got a good feeling. I'm a modeler. What is an election if it's not a big bunch of math? It's a bunch of math and a bunch of models. And so it's like right up my alley. So let me just, before I do that, let me tell you, I'll tell you about this first, and then I'll jump to Korea, because I want to tell you how I got into elections. It's still part of kind of an introduction. So what happened is, you remember Doug Mastriano in 2020, in end of November, he asked for an audit of the state of Pennsylvania after the election. By the way, he's a war hero, decorated war hero, and he's a senator in their state, a state senator. And the thanks he got for asking for an audit is that the Republican majority legislature took him off of every committee, took away his budget, took away his staff. In other words, they basically emasculated him. And I want you to know, and I'm just going to say it, and I could give you example after example, the Republican Party is the biggest opposition in this country to election reform. Okay? And if you want, I can show you example after example after example. It's not the Democrats that are fighting election reform. It's the Republicans. You guys have a Republican majority legislature here, right? And what did they just do? They just screwed you over big time with their recent bills they just passed about the voter rolls. Everybody said, oh, but they did us a favor. They reduced the price of the voter rolls for everybody. No, they reduced the price, but they took out all the critical information, so you can't audit their elections anymore. You can't audit your own elections. Your own legislature is hiding your elections from you. And you guys are red in the state. You should have a very representative, very transparent, very conservative legislature, and you don't. And I have a graph for that too, and I'll show you that later. But anyway, so what happened was he asked for an audit, and the next day I got a call from Kathy Barnett in Montgomery County. And they have about 500,000 people in that county. And she said, something's wrong with my election, and they're asking for an audit. And I saw you did all these numbers with COVID, and we did this podcast together. Would you please look at my election? Sure. So she sent me the data from her county. I studied it, and I found a lot of problems. So she introduced me to the legislature, the Senate, and the House. I showed them my results, and they liked what they saw. They put me on the audit committee. So I got to be on a small team, 6 people, that audited the 2020 election in Pennsylvania. This is important. I got to see anything I asked for. I had subpoena power through the legislature. People talk about the audit in Maricopa and Arizona. That's nothing. That was not even close to a full forensic audit because we were denied what we were asking for. Pennsylvania, I got to see anything I wanted. Long story short, because I could talk about Pennsylvania for a long time, but one part of it you need to hear, which I'm about to tell you. So what did I do? I got all the data, I built models, and I looked for deviations from the models. That's what I do. I'm a scientist. And I found a whole bunch of fraud in 2012 in Montgomery County. And I brought it to the attention of Russ Diamond, the legislator. And he goes, yeah, he says, we know about that. Here's the conviction. They already had the court case. They caught a guy stuffing 10,000 ballots. Stuffing 10,000 ballots. Okay? In other words, stuffing means people didn't vote. Ballots were put in using people's names. You understand? Stuffing ballots, okay? So what happened to the guy? Oh, they slapped him on the wrist, told him he can't do it again. Okay, that was 2012. So I looked in the same neighborhoods and the same problem, the same methodology. 30,000 ballots were stuffed in 2016. Okay, if you're getting paid per ballot, you do, and nobody's prosecuting you, why wouldn't you keep doing it? That's what happened. So that was 2016. So then along comes 2020, and I was analyzing 2020, and I just want to tell you this one story. 6 weeks before the election in 2020, in Montgomery County, that had 500,000 people registered, their voter rolls grew from 500,000 to 550,000 in 1 minute. I have all the electronic records. I have everything to prove that that happened, okay? I know every name that was added to the rolls. I know their address. I know their voting history. I know all this stuff about them. And I thought it was a little surprising that 50,000 people were all added in 1 minute. I thought that was a little surprising. But I figured maybe just the county clerk kind of let them all collect and turn them all in at once to get ready for the election or something like that. But I tracked those 50,000 people through. They added 50,000. Every one of them voted in 2020. And then every one of them was taken out of the rolls by the end of December. And that was strange to me. So I called Russ Diamond and I said, I need to talk to the Secretary of State. And I got all my graphs and data already, man. I was ready. I got you now. I got you now. And I got her on the phone because she had to answer because of the formal audit of the legislature. So I had Senator Bookvar on the line and I said, okay, here are those 50,000 people. Here's a few examples. All of them were just added right before the election. They all voted and you removed them all from the rolls. Why did you remove them from the rolls? That's my first question. And she answered, because they moved away. That completely caught me flat-footed. I was not ready for that, and I was kind of embarrassed because I had never even thought that 50,000 people would all be added, all vote, and all move away. That never even occurred to me as a possibility. So I said, well, thank you very much. I'll look into that, and I hung up. I was kind of embarrassed, actually, because I went to all the trouble to get her on the phone, and I felt stupid. So I started looking these people up, and she was right. They had all moved away. Every one of them had moved away 10 years earlier. So what was happening, long story short, is people were taking old copies of the rolls, putting people back in who had been there 10 years or earlier, back into the rolls and using those names to stuff ballots. And then the state was coming in December and doing voter roll maintenance and using the post office records to remove everybody who had moved away 10 years or earlier. So we knocked on 1,600 doors to confirm what we'd found, to make sure it was real. I had 100 volunteers knocking on doors for 3 days. We confirmed everything. I went to the legislature. So my first red pill was the fraud is real. Okay? This isn't a conspiracy theory. And the second red pill for me is when I went to these guys and showed it to them, I was expecting them to say, this is like the second week of December now, 2020. I'm expecting them to go, oh no, we got to decertify this election. Nope. They said, oh, that isn't the way we do it, Dr. Frank. This is politics. We're going to start the second week in January holding a series of public meetings, and we'll let you present your evidence then, and then we'll decide what to do about it. I'm like, no, you can't wait till then. You have to decertify the election now, before the next administration comes in. This is a bad thing. And I was working a little bit with the White House at that time, and Trump was waiting for one state to decertify, and then he would have nullified the entire election. He had the authority to do that from his 83rd executive order, what he did in 2018. But anyway, that's another topic. I'm not trying to take us down there yet. I'll get you back to that. So anyway, that was a shock to me. Red pill 1, fraud is real. Red pill 2, they're not going to fix it. So I was mad at them. So I started downloading all the data from Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, and Colorado because that's available online and I could get it. And I ran all my algorithms and models that I developed in Pennsylvania on those, and guess what? Just as much fraud in Florida. Almost as much fraud in Florida as in California. Same as in North Carolina and Ohio. And I met with the Secretary of State of Ohio, Frank LaRose, and showed him the fraud. And I was expecting them to go, oh no, we have a problem, we have to deal with it. No one will address this problem. Even when you hack into the elections right in front of their faces, they will not. It's like the third rail of politics. Any politician who addresses election integrity is eliminated by the legislature. I'm telling you, I could give you example after example. So anyway, I'm trying to make a long story short so you can see how I got into this and what you need to understand about your elections. So what happened is we had 4 Supreme Court cases from Montgomery County. I was in 2 of them. My evidence was in 2 of them. All of those Supreme Court cases were rejected by the end of February, and I was at a low point. And I went to my wife at the end of February, maybe it was the beginning of March. I said, honey, we've lost our country. The legislatures are not going to fix it. The law isn't going to fix it. We're in trouble. We're in trouble as a country. We've lost our elections. And I didn't know what to do about it. And then the next day, Mike Lindell called me. He said, hey, I heard about your work in Pennsylvania. I'm doing a movie. I'm doing a series of movies, and I'd like to feature some of your work in my upcoming movie. So I went down to Nashville, met with him, and we made a movie. We filmed together for 3.5 hours. He was originally going to just take some of that and put it in a movie, but he liked my work so much, he made a whole documentary just on my work called Scientific Proof. Suddenly 12 million people knew who I was in about a week. And I started getting phone calls from people all around the country. Dr. Frank, please come help us. Something's wrong with our election. Then Mr. Lindell's third movie came out, Absolute Interference. There's another 30 minutes in that it's about a 2-hour movie, and the first 30 minutes is my work, more of my work. And so suddenly my messages are piling up on my desk at home from people calling me. I didn't sign up for this. I didn't know I was going to do this. And then President Trump invited me to be his keynote speaker for his first rally after he was out of office. He said, Dr. Frank, explain to the world how they stole my election. And so so now I'm like famous now. Everybody knows who I am, but everybody's asking me, come help us, come help us, come help us. Well, I got bills to pay. I got a family to support. I got, lawn to mow. Okay. And so I prayed about it. I said, okay, God, is this what you want me to do? I'll go. I promise. I felt like I was being Jonah. I was debating whether to go to Nineveh or not. And I decided I would go the easy way instead of getting swallowed by a whale and puked up on the beach all bleached and stinky. So I decided to go to Nineveh, and I went upstairs and I talked to Donna, my lovely bride, and I said, honey, I'm going to set aside my income for 6 months. We're going to save the country, and then I'll be back to work. That was in March of 2021 when I told her that. So then I had to decide, okay, I've got the huge stack of messages. Who do I go to? 70. Who do I call first? I don't even know what to do. So I prayed again. Okay, God, I don't know how to prioritize this, so I'm going to let you prioritize this. Whatever's on top, that's what I'm doing. Okay, so shuffled them up. Tony Shoup, Pennsylvania. It just happened. So we set up Audit the Vote PA, and that was a great 30-minute phone call. And as I hung up with her, my computer went bleep. And there was a lady in the state of Washington, Carol Lee is her name. And she said, Dr. Frank, we got problems in our elections. Will you please, it was the message said, Dr. Frank, we got problems in our elections. Please call. And she gave me a phone number. I said, okay, God, whatever you put in front of me. So that's it. So I pick up my phone, call. Yeah, hello, Carol Lee. Yeah, this is Dr. Frank calling. Suddenly I hear all this screaming and yelling coming out of my phone. It sounds like a mass murder. I'm like, are you okay? Are you okay? What's up? What's up? She says, oh, Dr. Frank. She says, I'm at a prayer meeting at church. It's a bunch of women. We're all in a circle on our knees on the floor. And we just prayed and asked to have Dr. Frank call us. and I'm telling you, that has been my life since I've given over my life in service. I tell you, it is crazy. You all heard of Tina Peters? Yeah. Guess who did that? That was me in her office in April of 2021 that set up all that stuff. I am always in the right place at the right time, and I have nothing to do with it. It's all God setting it up. Just shuffle those messages and be willing, and God will send you, and it's amazing what will happen. So my life has been crazy. On that topic, that's a perfect segue to Korea, because I already told you what happened in Pennsylvania and that it's everywhere. You need to hear this story. This is a big story, and it's not being covered in the media. Who's surprised? So in March, former Prime Minister of South Korea, Hwang Kyo-ahn, he was Prime Minister when Trump was in his first term, and his interpreter, I got to put the pointer on here. His interpreter, Jennifer, he presented for 10 minutes at CPAC, and he said, America, we're in desperate need of your help. We're losing our country from corrupt elections. Sound familiar? So, of course, Mr. Lindell's there, and so, of course, they connect, and they have a conversation afterwards, and they agree they're going to form a joint team, an American-South Korean team that's going to work together to figure out election fraud. And so Mike called me and said, would you please take a call from their team? And so they called me. We did a Zoom call. And Jennifer, again, she's the translator. And Chu Hyun, he's the Johnny Appleseed of election integrity in South Korea, like I'm the Johnny Appleseed of election integrity here in America. So he's like the Dr. Frank of South Korea. So we hit it off immediately, and we had a long conversation. I talked about my skills, what I have to contribute, how I could participate. And next day, I sent a message to Jennifer. I said, so, do you guys want help? Do you want to get involved? She says, oh, please come. 1,000%. We want you to come to South Korea. And I'm like, well, when do you want me to come? Tomorrow. I'm like, I'm already booked months in advance, okay? And this next week, I'm supposed to be in Central California for a big conference on child trafficking, and I'm a keynote speaker at that. And I'm on the board of directors. I can't miss that. And the following week, I have a whole week-long tour in Wisconsin. They got all the venues chosen and the advertising out. I can't just leave. I said, I'm going to have to pray about it. She said, okay, well, get back to me right away. And I hung up. Within an hour, I had calls from both of them that they postponed and rescheduled months later. Okay? It is crazy to be me. You just got to be yielded. And when you're yielded, and God is outside of time and space, you're talking to a physicist now, that means something to me. He's outside of time and space, and he can arrange all the details. So I knew at that moment, yep, I'm going to South Korea. I didn't know why. I just knew I was going, right? So I called her back and said, yep, I'm coming. And they said, great. So they sent me the money for the plane ticket. It was a big, expensive plane ticket. And I'm waiting at the gate in, I'll make sure the speaker's on. I'm waiting at the gate in the airport to get on, and my phone starts blowing up. People say, Dr. Frank, I hear you're going to South Korea. I'm like, how do you know I'm going to South Korea? I haven't told anybody. Well, they have an ad out.
If Trump doesn't win, this will be the last real election in America.
Those are the most severe attacks on our election system.
All right. So I'm going to pause that. Sorry, I'm trying to pause that. So what happened is the commercial comes out, and why are you not letting me work here? Here we go. There we go, that's why. Because at the end of the commercial, it's 3 minutes long. I'm not going to make you listen to the whole commercial. At the end of the commercial, this is what's there.
I am 100% sure that we will be able to expose the fraud.
That's there. Okay, they had recorded that Zoom meeting that we did together, and they'd made a commercial basically announcing that there's this team, this Republic of Korea and America team to do election fraud. They didn't tell me we were going to make a commercial, but people heard that, and they, Dr. Frank, we heard you on X, and it's like, what? So I didn't even know they were advertising this. You get it? But did you notice they hid my face? Because they didn't want me to get stopped at immigration. Okay? And they asked me, don't wear your patriotic stuff. Come in plain clothes. So I came in plain clothes. And the first thing that Jennifer said, the translator, she met me there, and she said, we're sorry we don't have 1,000 people here to greet you, but we were trying to bring you in under the radar. But they still gave me flowers. I said, nobody gives me flowers in America. That's pretty nice, right? I arrived at the same time as this guy. His name is Morse Tan. He's an ambassador that Trump appointed in 2019. One of 3 ambassadors that they're called ambassadors at large. They have the authority to speak on behalf of the president anywhere in the world. He was head of the poli-sci department at Liberty University. That tells you a little bit about him. He's that kind of guy. All right, so the idea here is we're the only 2 people that we were brought in to observe this election in 2026. And the way they run their elections, you got to understand, is Friday, Saturday, they have early voting, and then the following Wednesday, they have election day. And all of the voting is in person, though. So Friday, Saturday, they can vote anywhere in the nation. And when they vote, the ballots that are remote get mailed to the destination. Otherwise, it's just they vote where they are locally. On Wednesday, they have to vote in person at their local precinct. So that's the way they run their election. So that was why. But they had all this promotional material. I mean, this umbrella is cool. They gave it to me. They made all this fancy stuff. People are asking me for autographs because they'd kind of already let the word. As they were driving to the headquarters of the Freedom and Liberty Party, Freedom and Innovation Party, they've got banners hanging all over the streets. I mean, it's just weird. I didn't know anything about South Korea except my stepdad and my father-in-law both fought there. All I know is I'm going, right? Because God sent me, so I'm going. All right, and so the Prime Minister, I met him and his lovely wife Joy, beautiful Christian people. He's a Baptist, she's Pentecostal, and that plays into this in an interesting way. I met the team. Now, during the election season, the reason they wanted me immediately is because I arrived a day before their early voting. So I could witness their early voting in person and do analysis. And I was expecting now that you know me, I'm a modeler. I'm expecting to be hiding in a cubicle somewhere, analyzing data and finding fraud. That's what I'm expecting to be doing. And so we watched 2 days of early voting, and we started finding tons of fraud. And I found a lot, and I'm going to give you one example in a minute. And then, but politicians during their election season from Friday to Wednesday are not allowed to talk in public. It's kind of like here, politicians can't talk in the polls. Same way in that country, you're not allowed to have public meetings. So I held press conference to talk about all the evidence we're finding, and so did Morris Tan. So we were holding press conferences to show the people what was going on. And then that night I was also on television, although they don't really watch TV. They stream on X. Everybody's on X there. And this guy, his name is Han Gil, which translated means one way, so it's one way news. And he's the most popular television program in the country. Millions of people watch live. And so I'm on his program, and the first question he asks me is, Dr. Frank, when is the U.S. military going to come and rescue us? I'm not expecting that. I don't know any of this stuff. And so I had to learn why they think that, and I'll explain that in a minute. So while I'm waiting, though, for Election Day, and in the evenings I'm crunching away on the data, I went and visited the Ministry of Information, the NEC, that's the National Election Commission. You notice I always take selfies of myself wherever I am, and I just did one out in the backyard here. And I post them online a lot of times so people know where I am, right? This is what I am, this is where I am. People want to know where I am and follow. And then I made a mistake. I visited AWEB, the Association of World Election Bodies. It's in the northern part of South Korea, and I took a picture of myself in front of that. And the next day, I'm on the cover of their conservative magazine because it's a faux pas to mention in public AWEB, because the South Koreans are ashamed of it, because it is the headquarters for the World International Election Fraud Cartel. It's where election fraud is exported all over the world. China uses it as its export hub. And the South Koreans are very patriotic, very pro-American. 9 out of 10 people are anti-communist, pro-American, pro-MAGA. They're all going around, fight, fight, fight. They love Trump. And so they're ashamed of this. So for me to take a picture in front of that was a faux pas, but it turned out to be important because now everybody in South Korea knows who Dr. Frank is and that Dr. Frank is there. Did I choose that? No. It's one of those amazing, stumbling, bumbling. It's a good thing that God uses the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. That's all I can say, all right? It's pretty good. And so the next day, I'm a K-pop star. I didn't do this, right? But suddenly everybody knows who Dr. Frank is, and we're the four musketeers here to rescue South Korea, which is now a communist country. Have you heard that in the news? South Korea is now a communist country. Huh. Wait a minute, how can that be? They're a free republic. They're one of our best allies. They fought in the wars with us. I'm about to tell you. So now it's Dr. Frank and Hwang Kyo-won and Morris Tan and Attorney Park, the four musketeers. They're here to rescue. And people are constantly saying to me, when is America coming? When is America coming? We're waiting. We need them to rescue us because we're turning communist. We need their help. We need them back. And then it occurred to me, I remembered something. Remember this movie from 2021, Absolute Proof? Mike Lindell published these electronic communication traces, which we got from Space Force, by the way. I can now say that since it's now declassified. Where are all those communications which are landing in Alabama, among other states? Where are all those communications coming from? Huawei, China, which is why the president mentioned them in his speech a month ago. And what's the other major hub right here? AWEB, South Korea. In other words, it is the world exporting hub of election fraud right there in South Korea. And if you don't believe me, just look at what Kash Patel hinted at last year, but now more detail is out. During 2020 election, a month before, in October, the FBI seized 1 million fake driver's licenses and 1 million fake ballots corresponding to those fake driver's licenses outside of Detroit. And that's only one of several examples I know about. I just want you to think about what that means. Everybody thinks that machines are flipping ballots. That's not correct. The machines play an important role. They are reporting in real time what ballots tallies are and who's voted. The way the elections are being stolen is by stuffing ballots. That's 1 million ballots that almost made it into the election. It doesn't matter whether you count those with machines or count those by hand or count those standing on your head. I always tell people, oh, Dr. Frank, we want to do an audit of our election. We want to do an audit. I'm like, well, how are you going to do an audit? And they say, oh, we're going to do a recount of the ballots. Don't. Don't waste your time. You'll just do another Maricopa and make us all look stupid. I said, I always like telling people, it doesn't matter how many times you count the cash in the register. What matters is how many of the bills are counterfeit. You can count those ballots as many times as you want. You can count them with machines. You can count them by hand. That's the wrong way to audit an election. Because when you've done the recount, everybody says, oh, see, there's no fraud. No, you counted fraudulent ballots. The way to audit an election is to count the voters. Who supposedly voted? Let's go verify. What did I tell you in Pennsylvania? 50,000 people were added to the rolls. They all voted. They were taken out. That's not flipping ballots. That's stuffing ballots. Everybody's seen the graph from Michigan that goes up like this, and then it jumps up at 11 o'clock and then goes on. Remember, they call that the fraud graph. That's not flipping votes. That's adding votes. In fact, that's adding 156,000 votes and new voters at 11 p.m. at night. And I was in that lawsuit, and I coached the attorney on it. And the attorney asked the judge, we want to see the list of the names of those 156,000 people who all showed up at 11 o'clock at night and suddenly got registered and voted. And the judge ordered the Secretary of State, Widmer, to give us the list of names. And she said, okay, I'll comply with the court order, but it'll take me 2 years to compile the list. Okay, and then the case was settled, dismissed 6 months later, so we never got to see the list of those 156,000 people who suddenly appeared on the rolls and all voted on election night. In other words, people think that the machines are the culprit because the machines are flipping ballots. Wrong. The reason the machines are important is because in real time, the people who are cheating know every tally and every race because the machines are communicating in real time. Say you want to cheat. Say Dean's behind in his lieutenant governor race. He can know how far behind he is. Oh, I need another couple thousand votes. So let me look over here. How did you know that? Because the machines are accessible. And so you come over here. Oh, who hasn't voted yet? Let's find another couple thousand people who haven't voted yet. Let's stuff ballots using those names. That's the way the cheat is happening. That's why you need to audit the voters, not the ballots. I'm not telling you not to audit. You should audit every part of the election, but that's not where the fraud is. So I'll show you graphs like this for your own town and your own country. Our own county, But I was making all my graphs, my typical graphs, after I was showing you these at the press conferences, doing all my typical stuff. You've seen my presentations. I love making a graph for everything. This is the one I think that you'll like. It's a simple one, and it's a good one to look at. So because everybody votes in person there, our fraud team got volunteers outside of every precinct. Not every precinct, lots and lots of, hundreds of precincts. And they were there with counting clickers. And so every person that walked in, they would count. And during the day, the NEC, the National Election Commission, reports how many people voted at each precinct. So me, man, I'm in my hotel room watching the numbers coming in and the tallies coming in from our volunteers. And I made a graph. This is the blue curve. That's how many people went into a particular precinct. And then throughout the day, the red curve tells you how many people the NEC reported voted. Oh, it's about 10, 15% high. We have dozens of precincts like this where there were more votes reported than people who went in to vote. Sound familiar? Okay, so this is the kind of approach I was taking in my press conferences. I was showing you have all this fraud. There's other evidence too, but I just want to give you an example. This is my specialty. I love numbers. I love doing this. And you can tell I even made it in Korean, right? All right. But I didn't have to do that. Something amazing happened. I'm telling you, I am always in the right place at the right time, and I ain't got nothing to do with it. So you got to know how Koreans live. They live in vertical villages. As 50 million people live in the place the size of Indiana. And if you divide it up into counties, that's like their provinces. And what happens is they come down out of their buildings and they vote local community centers. They have public baths and swimming pools and parks, but they all live up in these vertical villages, they call them. So as we're driving around on election day with the security contingent, and we're going around in the limousine, we're following X because everybody's on X. I mean, everybody's got their camera out. Everywhere you go, they got their cameras up. They're filming me. They're filming us. Everybody's on cameras. It's amazing. So we're watching X. And lo and behold, one of the precincts says, we ran out of ballots. And so we contacted the NEC and asked for more ballots. And they said, no, we already gave you plenty. We're just going to come collect whatever you've got. And so they're complaining on X. Guess where I am? 5 minutes from there. I'm on the other side. From Doug Frank from the other side of the world is sitting in exactly the right place in South Korea when these guys say, so what? We drove over there. Okay. And so I stood in front of their little community building and I said, I think you guys shouldn't turn in any ballots at all until they give you enough ballots so that everybody can vote. And they agreed. And 10,000 people came down out of the building and surrounded the building and said, we're not going to give the ballots to the government. And Hwang Kyo-ahn got up and said, and by the way, while we're at this, we're not going to give them any of the ballots till we've had a chance to look at them too, because we think there are a lot of fraudulent ballots in there and we'd like to have a look at those ballots. So within a couple hours, there are another half a dozen precincts because this is all on X, that 10,000 people were coming down out of their vertical villages and surrounding their buildings. By the end of the next day, we had 40 precincts in South Korea where 10,000 people were surrounding each building, telling the government, we're not giving you our ballots because we didn't get enough. Now, I've done the analysis. I don't want to show you the analysis. Take my word for it for now. The reason they ran out of ballots is they had too much cheating in the early voting. And you've got these long lines of people that want to vote, but there's no ballots. And the NEC is telling them, we're going to collect them the way they are. I didn't have to convince anybody that there's election fraud in the country of South Korea. I've got all my beautiful evidence all lined up, all my presentations, all my slides. I'm ready to go. I've even got jokes written in Korean. I'm all ready to go. I didn't have to do nothing because the government handed it to us on a silver platter, right? Okay, so then what happens? This is big. It's crazy to be in front of 10,000 people, and everybody's got a camera up, and they're all reporting it on X. So it's like I'm like known everywhere in the country now, for sure. Next morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, Hwang Kyo-ahn's out there. I was in my hotel probably sleeping. 400 cops came in and pushed him out of the way. They formed a wedge and pushed through the crowd and seized the ballots at that first precinct. Now what do you got? You got 10,000 really mad Koreans. Okay, so what do? They went over and joined the next precinct. Cops come in there. By the end of the day, we had 3 major groups, over 1 million people in South Korea, all protesting. And they would surrounded the buildings where the cops had collected the ballots for counting. They count them in open coliseums. It's like a spectator sport. People sit in the stands and watch them count the ballots, and it's interesting. So we went to Pyeongtaek, and it was weird because there's like 100,000 people around their stadium there. And they're not letting any officials in. They're not letting any officials out. It's like we kept the poll workers trapped in there. I walk up to the crowd. It's like Moses. Red Sea parts. USA, USA, Dr. Frank, Dr. Frank. And it's like I get to walk up and I get to speak to 100,000 people at Pyeongtaek. It was amazing to address them and to be right in the middle of this uprising. I mean, this is a huge deal. Then we went up to Seoul. This is what Seoul looked like at night. Okay? And I am standing right there. Okay? People were using their drones, flying around their drones, taking pictures and everything. And there were about 300,000 people there at the Seoul Coliseum, surrounding the Coliseum, basically telling the government, we're not giving you the ballots because we want a re-election. And they're all shouting, we re-election, re-election, fight, fight, fight. We go together. Single day elections, paper ballots. Sound familiar? I wonder where they learned all that. Okay, but anyway, that's what was happening. The director of the NEC resigned, which was, if you know Asian culture, that is huge, okay? Now, there are, I got to show you this. Che Go means re-election, re-election. And that group that I just showed you, that's 200,000 college students. And, sorry, look at the flags. What flags are they? American flags, Korean flags. They know they're desperate. They need us. When those 400 cops came in to take the ballots, they're completely disarmed. They have no guns in our country, not even the cops. Okay, so that's why our Second Amendment is so important, because the government would never pull that off with us. We wouldn't let them. We'd be standing there with our guns. Come and take them. That's Molon Labe, right? We'd be saying, we're not going to give you, we're not going to let the government push over us. That's a big deal. But these are Christian college students. They would do their chant, and then they would sing hymns for a while. And then they would do their chant. It was crazy. Why is the church involved there? There are three groups protesting. The young people are protesting because while I was there, the government took down X. And then they took all the kids off and then raised it back up, and they made it illegal for the kids to be on X because they're trying to stop the information from getting out. And so the kids are all out because they realize they're in trouble and the government's after them. The old people remember the Korean War from 1950 to 53, and they remember that when the 38th parallel was set up, everybody north of that who's a Christian was slaughtered. It was martyred, and they closed the churches. So the old people remember communism, and the churches are there because they know it's an existential threat if their country becomes communist, because what just happened there. So those are the three groups that are, it's amazing they're protesting. In fact, I got to speak at the largest Methodist church in the world, 140,000 members. And after I spoke, the minister got into the pulpit and said, our country's being stolen from us through election fraud. Okay, the churches recognize the existential threat. Our churches in America don't. Maybe this place accepted. There are a few places. Satan, the first thing communism attacks is the churches. So I spoke at that one. That's 140,000 members there. I spoke at this Baptist church. They have about 80,000 members here. It was amazing. When I walked into this building, they were singing, "This is my Father's world." It was awesome with full orchestra. So, of course, I had to sing. But they were singing in Korean. I was singing in English, but it was awesome. All right, so I wanted to get the word out, so every morning I was on Lindell TV with Vanessa Broussard, and I was telling the world, but no mainstream media is covering this. Can you imagine 1 million people are protesting this upheaval in one of our finest allies, and nobody is talking about it? You want to know why nobody's talking about it? Because they would have to say, they're being taken over by communism and through corrupt elections. Aren't these the most secure elections in the world? At the end of one of my press conferences, the former director of their CIA, they call it the NIS, gave me this book. It's a preprint in English of a book that's already been published in Korean. So it's not out. You can't buy it yet. Maybe it'll be on Amazon this month or something like that. And he handed it to me in an envelope, and he says, Dr. Frank, you have to read this book. So that night in my hotel room, I started reading it, and my jaw fell open. The title of the book, The Quiet Coup, Color Revolution in Seoul, How a Free Republic Was Engineered Toward Communist Capture. Wow. In 2025, they impeached, in 2024, they impeached their real president. They impeached a president. They put him in prison, and they elected a communist president in 2025 with a corrupt election. How can you elect a communist president when 9 out of 10 people are pro-American, anti-communist? Corrupt elections is how. And the first thing they did is disarmed the South Korean troops on the 38th parallel, basically inviting North Korea in, if you think about that. They disarmed them. And The next thing they did is in their National Assembly, it's like our Congress, they tried to change their constitution to be no longer a free republic, change it to a socialist republic modeled after the USSR. They were shy 10 votes. That's why they were so concerned about this election, because they knew it was going to be cheated again and that they would have the majority, and that's exactly what's happening right now. It's a little complicated since they still don't have all the ballots 2 months later, because we still have people demonstrating and defending the buildings, keeping the ballots away. But they've declared their outcome anyway. But you see where they're at? That's where and they are expecting America to come rescue them. And I don't think that's happening. And so I was telling them, you guys, I love you, but you're going to have to demonstrate. You're going to have to stay strong. You're going to have to fight for your own liberty. And it was amazing to witness, because everything, and I mean everything that has happened there is exactly what's happening here right now in America. And we are sitting on top of this amazing situation. We are right on the same knife edge. I want you to realize they went from 2024 having a real president, really elected, to 2026. They are now a communist government in 2 corrupt elections. And it's how they did it. And I came back pretty fired up. And I sat down with one of my pastor friends. I said, please pray for me. I said, because I want to shake every American by their collar and wake them up and get them to say, imagine if Kamala was president right now. Can you imagine how different our country would be? I mean, that tells you we are right on the edge. We're right on the precipice. And ironically, the first place I spoke in Wisconsin on Monday night, I got an email from one of the deacons of the church. It was the church venue, like this is a church venue. And he said, we've decided not to have you come on Monday night, Dr. Frank, because you're controversial. And you speak ill of the politicians. And so I wrote back a snarky email. I said, I guess the prayer didn't work yet. I wrote back a snarky email and said, yeah, I guess you wouldn't have Jesus Christ or John the Baptist there either, because they spoke ill of the government and they challenged the morality of the leaders. So I guess you wouldn't have him either. And so the pastor called me the next day and we had a nice little conversation, and I actually did get to speak that night. But I went and told them right to their faces. I said, you guys are chicken. You need to step up. If you're following Christ's example, Christ was no mamby-pamby savior. He took a whip and he went and he cleaned the temple, baby. That's no mamby-pamby wimpy guy. You got to take it on. So anyway, I'm getting off topic. Let me play this one last thing. I want you to notice, though, that everything, universities, post office, legislature, law, every branch of every institution in their society has been infiltrated just like here, and they're engineering us to that moment. And I'm going to show you more, but November in this country, same thing. We're going to have a major issue in November. There's a reason why Trump is talking about election fraud. It's because, and foreign interference, because his 83rd executive order, I should show you a copy, gives the executive branch the authority to intervene internationally, declare a state of emergency, freeze funds, freeze process in the case of international interference. Why is he talking about international interference? He's preparing us for what's going to happen in November. And your state, in particular, Alabama, is fighting the federal government right now, refusing to give over your voter rolls. I don't know if you knew that, but you guys are right. You guys are going to be one of the epicenters. Let me play this, and then I'm going to be done with Korea. But you needed to know that this was real and that this is imminent. And I just gave you a real life example where it is. But this is amazing. So I'm in the car with and the entourage, and I'm with John Kim is his name. He's one of the most popular podcasters in the country, a very conservative guy. And he says, I want to write a letter to America. I said, okay, great. And I took out my pad and I said, okay, you dictate, I'll write it down. And he started talking. And I said, stop. I took out my phone and I recorded it. 3 minutes. I want you to hear this 3 minutes. This is authentic. This is real. It really happened. This is John.
I have a letter to America. Dear America, I'm a husband, father of 3. Well, 140 years ago, you came to our land and you taught us the Bible. So now I'm saved. Thank you. Thank you, America. In 1950 to 1953, you came to our land again. You fought for us. You protected us. Almost 36,000 American soldiers died, and more than 100,000 American soldiers got injured. You came to our land to protect us. You bled and died for us. You bled and died instead of us. Thank you. So I'm alive. And still, you're in our land. You're still protecting us. Thank you. And I'm sorry I didn't thank you enough. My brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers in America, in Christ, thank you and love you. From now, we're not gonna just ask for help. We wanna fight for you now. America is the strongest country, but America is fighting a lonely fight. You have your family, brothers, and sisters here. From now on, we want to fight for you. America has to be stronger and wealthier. We want to make America stronger and wealthier and greater to protect people, protect the world, to protect freedom of faith. And thank you. So please help. It could be your words, military, finance. Give me some weapons so we can fight for you. Fight for freedom. Fight for freedom of our faith. Thank you. Love you, America.
I'm always in the right place at the right time. The most important thing he said, I think, America is fighting a lonely war. He realizes if we go down, everybody goes down. We are the defenders of liberty. We are the beacon of liberty in the world, and they know they've lost their country, which is why they're so desperate for us to come and save them. But we're asleep. We are asleep as a country, which is why I just want to grab everybody by the scruff of the neck and shake them. Thank you. John's cool. Since I'm in church, I'll tell you a little tidbit. I was having breakfast with him the first morning I was there, and he told me his name in Korean, and I was trying to pronounce it, and it was tough. And he says, I'll tell you what. He says, I've never adopted an American name before, but a lot of my friends have. What do you think my American name should be? And so he said his name again, and it kind of sounds like John. And I said, what does your name mean in Korean? He says, it means a person who reveals. I said, well, I know what your name is. It's going to be John, because John is a revelation. And so he adopted that as his name. And so for the whole life, I gave him his name of John. It's crazy. But anyway, John Kim, great kid. I met his children, beautiful wife and children, and it's just amazing. He realizes his children are going to grow up in a communist country. And I can tell you more stories, but I think I've given you the nub of what you need to know. This is real. This just happened, and the same thing is happening here. The fight that you are engaged in is not merely for Lee County. It's not merely for Alabama or the United States. It's for the whole world. And it's a war between good and evil. And this is it. This is happening now. And November especially is going to be a big culmination. So now I got to bring you back to Alabama. Whew. That's a strong story, isn't it? I need to get it shorter, but it's important. It's hard to take any of that out. I already cut out a bunch of fun stuff. All right. So I've been doing this for 6 years, 25 out of 30 days a month on the road. I've given over about 1,100 presentations now. I've got a PowerPoint for every one, so I can back up my claim. people think they know what's wrong with the elections. Like, I love Mr. Lindell. He's a patriot. He's put everything of his life into election reform. He talks about the machines all the time. We got to get rid of the machines. Is he wrong? No, he's right. We got to get rid of the machines. But that isn't the only problem. There are 12 problems, at least 12 ways to cheat the elections, and those are just main categories. There's categories under categories. So when I ask people what is wrong with our elections, Mike Lindell would say, we got to get rid of the machines. We got to melt them down and make them into prison bars. That's what he would say. And he's not wrong. We need to do that. But that's only part of the problem. Here's the problem. In every state in America, and I mean every state because I've done the math and I've examined the rolls, elections are now centrally controlled by the state. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. Your elections in Lee County are not controlled locally. They are controlled at the state level. And I'm going to show you that that is the case. I can prove it to you. I'm going to give you the numbers and show you your own voter rolls. So the problem is, because of that, you've lost your constitutional voice. We are no longer a representative democracy because your voices are not being represented through your vote. It's being manipulated somewhere else. Let me give you a simple example. So when I was in college, back in the 70s, we had a central computer on campus. It was a VAX computer. Some of you might remember those VAX computers. And then around campus, they had these terminals. We called them dumb terminals because they didn't do anything. They just only communicated. They didn't have any files, any software. All they did was just like a keyboard to talk to the computer. We call them dumb terminals. Nothing happened in the terminal. Everything happened in the computer. Well, that's the way your elections are run. And I'm going to give you an example of that here in a second. But basically, there's a central database where all of your election is being managed, and that's up in the cloud somewhere. It's actually in Omaha, Nebraska, for Alabama. And then your clerks, whenever they want to do anything with your elections, they log in to that central database. In fact, I was talking to a clerk last couple trips back here in Alabama, and she said she hates it because every time if there's a storm in Nebraska, she can't get into the voter rolls. Okay? Because the voter rolls are not here. The voter rolls are in Omaha, Nebraska. And nevertheless, the election officials think they're in control of their elections, but they're not. So let's say that Dean Odell wants to get registered to vote. What does he do? He goes in and talks to your local clerk and he says, I'd like to get on the rolls. Does she take out a copy of the rolls and add you to it? No. Does she log into her own computer and log into a copy here? No. She logs into the internet, into the state database, which is actually in Omaha, Nebraska, and adds him to the voter rolls. Let's say that Dean Odell dies and your lovely bride goes in to talk to the clerk and says, Dean's passed away, you should take him off the rolls. She can't even take him off the rolls. She has to go online, log in, and fill out a form requesting the state to take him off the voter rolls, and they may never do it. And that happens all the time. So your clerk is not in control of the voter rolls. That's the first thing. And I'm going to show you your voter rolls, your own. We'll look you up. We'll look a couple of you up right here. You'll see it's a mess. Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing, there's 3 parts to an election. Who gets to vote? How do you vote? And then how do you report it? The results. It's got 3 phases of the election. So the first phase, you're out of control. Second phase, I always ask clerks, tell me about how your election day goes. And they describe all these things. They're so proud of all the work they do. Your clerks aren't the evil people. They're just doing their job. But they're not in control, but they think they are. And I'll show you that in a minute, how they're not in control, but they think they are. So I say, what do you do at the end of the day? Oh, I take the stick out of the ES&S machine. The memory stick that just counted all the ballots. And I plug them into the computer. Oh, yeah. And then they're tabulated somewhere out in the cloud. And what did Stalin say? Stalin said, it is enough that the people know there was an election. The people who cast the votes decide nothing. The people who count the votes decide everything. When's the last time you counted votes? When's the last time your clerk counted votes? When's the last time anybody in your state counted votes? You are deciding nothing until you are counting your own votes, until you are controlling your own elections. And that's why the title of my work, I call it, I wrote a brochure 4 years ago, Taking Back Our Elections. And I have 7 steps to teach you how to take back control of your elections, how to do it locally. We've been succeeding all over the country. There are people who think they know what to do who are failing. I know what to do, and I'm succeeding because I already made 73 mistakes. I've already iterated to the strategy that works. People need to do what I tell them, but they don't because they all think they know what to do. It's very frustrating, but I think we're doing pretty good here, Wayne. We're doing better, right? We still got some opposition here, but we're working on it. What do we got, about a dozen counties or something in the state, maybe 10? About 10 counties where I've got some teams going, and I want to leave here today, and I want there to be a team here when I leave, and I'll give you the data. We've got a state support team to help you do this. We know how to do this. You just got to listen. People don't listen, though. People think they know what to do. So that's the problem with grassroots. I always tell people, if this is the Army, I'd give you orders, and we'd be done in a week. But people they know what they're doing. Okay, but that's all right. That's a whole other thing. All right, let's talk about Alabama for a minute now. All right, I'm going to start showing you a couple of graphs. You got to show graphs. It's Dr. Frank. Okay, so I've already put all this up online, so you can go to my YouTube channel and you can see all this, but I'll just give you a summary of it here. So this is your number of people in your state since 1980 up to present who are voting age. That doesn't mean they're eligible to vote. That means they're voting age. Because you have some people here that are not citizens. They're not eligible to vote, okay? And some of them are illegal aliens. Some of them are legal. But nevertheless, they're not allowed to vote. You notice there's a couple of glitches in the curve. Here, that's the 2000 census adjustment. And it looks like there's another glitch here in 2020. But basically, Alabama's steadily growing. Number of voting people, okay? This graph, the black curve, is every 2 years, how many people the Secretary of State says is eligible to vote in that election. That's your registered voters. And it's every 2 years for the general election. And you'll notice back in the 80s and 90s, it was about 70% of the voting age population. And that's good. I've been modeling elections since 1981. It was in 1979 because I predicted 1980. And a good, clean voter rolls has about 70% of the voting age population in it. Sounds slow at first, but there's a lot of reasons why it works out that way. So you had good, clean voter rolls in Alabama until 2010. Then suddenly your voter rolls started growing faster than your population. Do you see that? That's the year that your clerks lost control of the voter rolls and the state took over control of the voter rolls and it went out into the cloud. And that's the year also that the state started automatically adding people who get driver's licenses, automatically add people who get welfare, automatically add parents to the voter rolls if their children go to the local school, regardless of whether they're citizens or not. So suddenly your voter rolls started growing faster than the population, and your clerk is not able to see all the names that are being added to the rolls because she's not the one adding them. And so names are being added rapidly. Now, names are also being removed, but she doesn't know which are being added and which are being removed. So I just want you to see that. Now, if a lot of times when I sit with the clerk, they'll say, "Oh, Dr. Frank, I'm in control of my rolls." And I'll say, "No, you're not. You might think you are, but you're not." And I'll give you an example that I often give them. Here's the number of people registered in every county in Alabama. 67 counties, every one of them here. And you got big counties and small counties. And it's hard to see the small counties, so I'm going to put them all on the same scale, on a percent scale. I just want you to notice that every county is following the same pattern. Okay? And there are huge numbers of people being added and removed. And the clerk doesn't know who's being added and removed. All she sees is the total because she logs in and she just adds a few, removes a few. It just kind of goes along. She's not printing a list of everybody in Lee County every month and comparing name to name, finding out who's being added and removed. She doesn't know. So what I've done to help you understand that is I've introduced a term. It's called churn. Say that Lee County has 100 people in it and 10 people move out and 10 people move in. Started with 100. 10 people move out, 10 people move in. That would be 20 changes out of 100. We call that a 20% churn. Get it? That's how many changes there were. So what is the churn? That's Covington. I did Lee County. Let me get Lee up here. Here we go. Here's Lee County. So you notice you're no exception. You have the same churn going on in your rolls. What did I say about Pennsylvania? Right before the election, they added 50,000 people in Montgomery County, and then right after they took them back out again. I wonder about this, huh? Okay, And your clerk doesn't even know this is happening because she doesn't have the lists. And there's 60,000, I guess there are about 80,000, 90,000 names. And she's not going name by name every month and comparing how many people are in there, is she? Okay, so, and if I bring the population line down next to the trend, you have about 1 in 5 people don't belong in your voter rolls. You've grown faster than your population. The rolls have grown faster. And I've learned over time that that's a good explanation. Now, who's being added and removed? Who's churning in those rolls? It's not you guys. It's not the real residents. Like I said, a clean voter rolls should have about 70% of your 18 and older population in it. That would be a clean voter rolls, and it would be normal over time for people to die, people to move away, people to move in. There'd be some normal churn. That would be normal. A few percent a year would be normal. And maybe a little higher because you have a college town, so they're a little higher. But still, even in college towns, it's only about 5 or 6% instead of 3 or 4%. So that would be normal for you to have some churn. But what's happened is your state has inflated the rolls. Those are the names that are being added and removed. Those are churning like crazy. And I did an interview this morning with a gentleman, I'm trying to remember his name, it'll come to me in a second, in Alabama. I guess the podcast will come out probably tomorrow. And I was explaining to him the names that they're adding and removing, the clerk doesn't even know who they are. It's people getting automatically added from the driver's licenses and whatnot. And that's where the churn is happening. So I've calculated the churn for every county in Alabama because I have the rolls for every county in Alabama. I'll just give you an example. Here's Covington, where I was yesterday. You notice I'll get the pointer going again. 1, 2, 3, 4 copies of the voter rolls. I haven't added, I just got a new copy of your voter rolls. Let me pause there. I left something out. So we use the voter rolls to find out which votes are real and which ones are not. Right? We find dead people who vote. We find people who live in other states that are somehow still voting. We use that. Well, your state makes that really hard. And one of the ways they make that really hard is they charge $36,000 for a copy of your voter rolls. You're the most expensive in the country. And we were complaining vigorously about that. Wayne knows we're complaining vigorously about that. The next highest is Wisconsin at $12,500. So we were complaining. In fact, I was in John Merrill's office in 2021 with Mike Lindell, and Mr. Lindell wrote him a $30,000 check on the spot, and he gave us a copy of the voter rolls. I mean, that's legit. That's why you need to buy his pillows. Although he stepped down as head of CEO of My Pillow. I don't know if you noticed that. I think that was a smart move. Takes them out of the crosshairs. But anyway, that's another discussion. So anyway, you've charged way too much for your voter rolls, which keeps people out of the voter rolls. So we were complaining vigorously. So you guys passed a law this year. It was 67, was it? 267. And the law, your legislature said, we're hearing complaints about the rolls being too expensive, so we're going to reduce it. Now the cost's only $1,000. You can get a copy of the rolls. Except they took out all the critical information. And so now you can't audit, you can't find frauds with that copy of the rolls. It doesn't help you. Your legislature pretended to listen to you and took advantage of the situation to hide it even more from you. Follow me? This is not... You guys are red. The people in Alabama, you guys are conservative, beautiful people. Your legislature is not you. You have elected people that are not representing you, which is why I think you're running for office. All right, but you get the idea where I'm going. All right, so anyway, I have 4. Now, I'm going to show you your county in a second. This one was handy. I used it for my first example. Over 4 years, 2, 3, 4, their voter rolls churned 40%. Their population only grew 1.2%, but their rolls churned 40%. Did 40% of their population change in 4 years? No way, Jose. And in that 4 years period of time, 1 in 8 of the people who voted in the election in 2020 have since been removed. So they lost 1 in 8 of their real voters. Okay, let's look at Lee now. I could pick any county you want because I've done this in every county. Okay, we'll do Barber here in a minute. So here's Lee County. Lee County, your 4 copies of the rolls. Your rolls have churned 50%. Did your population churn 50% in 4 years? You are not in control of your rolls. Your clerk thinks she is because she notices, okay, I had 116,000, now I've got 129,000, but we did grow by 8% population, so that's just fine. No. Between 20 and 22, 6,600 people were removed and 14,000 were added. 8,500 removed between 22 and 2024 and 20,000 were added. She's not doing that. The state is doing that. That churn that's happening in every county in tandem is where that's happening. She's not checking every person going in and out of the rolls, which is why you had all those non-citizens in your rolls. Remember that Wes Allen had to announce that? There's like 3,500 that he found, and he had to remove the non-citizens from the rolls. And that's why President Trump is saying that they in this election, they are going to prosecute county clerks who allow any non-citizen to vote in their rolls. The Department of Justice is going to prosecute. So this is relevant. This is happening right now. If your clerk's going to complain, she's going to say, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. The state is controlling the rolls. And we're going to say, we agree. Which is why you shouldn't let the state control your rolls. And here's how. And I've got all the tools to give them their own clean copy of their voter rolls. All legal. Everything's legal. And actually, your county clerk will be cooperating with the state law, complying with the state law, and complying with federal law. Right now, your voter rolls are outside of state law and outside of federal law. So I'm going to give your clerk, if you will help me do this, a clean rolls that they can use legally in the election. Most counties are not going to be doing this, though, which is why we're going to have a constitutional crisis, because the president's going to be able to say, you allowed a bunch of non-citizens to vote in the rolls. Your voter rolls that you used are illegal. You're garbage in, garbage out. I'm nullifying this election. You can imagine the civil unrest we're headed for in November. It's going to be ugly. So anyway, I just want you to see, you also, 1 in 8 of the people that voted in the 2020 election in Lee County have since been removed, too. Okay? Guess what? It's about the same in every county. Why would it be the same in every county? Because it's the same in every county. Because it's not big counties, small counties, green counties, red counties, black counties. It doesn't matter. They're all the same. Everyone. Why? Because it's centrally controlled. You have to bring back local control. There's more I could show on that. I'll just show you one thing. You said Howard County? Barber. Just because she's here. I'll look it up. Hang on for a second. Okay. I told you I could go for hours. Let's see here. Because Wayne knows I did every county. Barber? Barber. It's a French word. Okay, here we go. French. Barber. Here you go. Let's open it. Oh, it's a smaller county. It'll open quickly. There you go. Oh, nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Sorry, hang on. I'm going to open this one right here. Sorry.
No, thank you.
I've done every county in the state. Barbour. Your population has shrunk a little bit, about 1% in 4 years, but your rolls churned 40%. Does that sound familiar? And how many people have been removed? About 1 in 8. Huh. Did I pick that county? No. Okay. How many more do I need to show you before you're going to believe me that it's the same in every county? How could it be the same in every county? Because it is, because it's centrally controlled. That's why. Your local people are not in control. Now, the fun thing, here, I'm a little out of order, but let's just jump right in. This is fun. Okay. What's your name?
Priscilla Watson.
Oh, Priscilla Rochella.
R-O.
That's definitely a southern name. Rochelle. I like being in the South. Last time I was here, I met some gal, remember, her name was Dawn. And she says, and I said, nice to meet you, Dawn. No, my name is not Dawn, it's Down. Oh, excuse me. All right, I get it, it's Down, okay. So what I did is I need to explain I jumped ahead a little bit, so I left something out. Let me go back and explain something. I'll tell you a quick story. It's the fastest way to explain this. So I'm doing this all over the country, and I have really great teams in Oregon. Oregon, how are you succeeding in Oregon? Because the pain level is high there. They already know they're getting taken over by communism. I got 25 counties with teams out of their 36 counties. It's impressive in Oregon. One of my counties, Montgomery, Washington County, I was working with the team. They said, we found another bunch of dead voters, Dr. Frank. Oh, yeah. How many? About 20. They all died in 2011 and 2012. And then they didn't vote for 2 cycles. And then they started voting in every election. Okay? We're in church. Lazarus, right? Lazarus. So they're voting in every election. And then they were taken out of the rolls in 2023. Okay. So if you only use the most recent copy of the voter rolls to do your audit, you're missing all the action. So what I do is I take my copies, all the copies I have of your rolls, the most recent one, and I add back in everybody who's removed. So now I have a master list, which would be 50% larger in your county, right? Because 50% churn in only 4 years. So now we're not erasing the history. That's how they're hiding the fraud. You follow me? Okay, so that's what I've done. It's called the merged copy. And I'm just going to, and want you to notice something before I zoom in, because it's hard to read. I just want you to notice that I've got all the information about every voter, their voting history, when they voted, where they live, mailing addresses. I'm going to look you up here in a second, baby. Their ages. Okay. So I've sorted it by precinct first, then by address, and then by street name, and then by address, see street name, and then by address, and then I shaded them. So you'll notice that these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people all live at the same address. And then it's a new address, a new address. In other words, people who live at the same address, they're shaded the same. So it makes it easy to see. So I'm going to zoom in now that you see that. Now I have 4 copies of your voter rolls at the time that I was doing this. So let's just take the very first name, Howard Houston Crow, and this is Barbour County. He was active in the 2020 rolls. He was active in the 22 rolls, but he was inactive in the 24 and 25 rolls. Okay? After you've missed 2 elections, you're supposed to be removed after you've been inactive for 1 election. So he's supposed to be been removed, but he's still in the rolls. So that's dirty voter rolls. You're out of compliance with federal law. He should be out of the rolls. Okay? He was 54 years of age as of 2020. I had to pick 1 year reference. I just picked the starting year as the reference. He's only voted 3 times, and these are just the general elections. He voted in 2016 and in 2020. He must have voted in one of the primaries or one of the midterms, because I'm just showing these, one of the local elections or something, because I'm just showing the generals here to keep it simple. So you notice at his address, though, that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people registered to vote, 3 different last names. Okay, that's suspicious, I would say. And you notice that these people are inactive now and this person is active. So I bet you this is well, he's only 15 years, he's a kid. So I don't know why he's the only one who's active now. Maybe he's a college student or a young kid and he now is renting or something and all these people have moved away. The point is, they're inactive. They probably don't live there anymore. And I've got a program I can bring up right now. It's called the PCOA and the NCOA. It's what commercial printers use to find out if people live there still, because they're not allowed to do bulk mailing to people that don't live there anymore. And I've got that list, and we can show you. I can show you, and so we'll be able to clean your voter rolls pretty easily. But I just want you to realize that's just the first one in the list. And I'm telling you, 20 to 30% of the people that don't belong in your rolls. I'm telling you that right now, and we can prove it. So just for fun, let's look you up. What's your address? Cotton Hill Road. She didn't say Cotton Hills, she said Cotton Heel. I love traveling the country. And I'm in Maine. It's like John says to his wife, Marlene, pack the car. We're headed to Bar Harbor. I love it. It's going around the country, hear all the different, I love it. I'm the one with the accent, I know. I'm a stranger here. Okay, so 200 Cotton Hill. So this is your address, yes? Yes. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people registered at your house. So are you the Watsons?
We are.
So this is Rochella. There you are, darling.
There I am. Look at that.
And so who's Joanna Kilgore and Elizabeth Nicholson?
This one
She's listed as inactive in your rolls.
Okay. And then she lives in Georgia now. So she shouldn't even be on the rolls. Hasn't lived in that house since what, 4 years? 4 years. And then
Did I pick this address?
No.
How many more do I need to pick before you will realize your rolls are filthy dirty and I don't even have to try? Go ahead.
Yeah, and the other two, they don't live there and haven't in over a year.
So, do you know your neighbors?
Yes.
Who do you know? The Andersons? Joshua and John Anderson?
The ones that were above it, yes.
You knew these people?
Yes.
They look like they're active voters. Good voters, too. They vote a lot. If I keep going up. Oh, wait a minute. A couple doors down. The Beatties and the Williams?
Yes.
They have a family compound.
But I was trying to.
They have a family compound, so that could be real.
Emily's not there anymore.
Yeah, like some of these people, like you
Miss
said, they're not
Nadine
there.
has passed away and has been passed away since like 2020.
Something's wrong with them now.
Who's been passed away since 2020? Nadine?
Nadine.
Well, they did take her out, so yeah, I bet you're right. I bet you she did pass away. All right. Are you getting the idea? Do you see how valuable it is to have the roles like this? If you form a team, I will give this to you. I will teach you how to use it. I don't charge anything, okay? I'm here. We'll form a team. I'll connect you to Wayne and the state leadership team, and they'll coach you, and I'll help you, and we will help you find fraud in your county. Now, why would you do that? I could do the same thing with Lee, right? I just looked her up because she was asking for Barbara. Okay. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay. I could do the same thing. I'm not going to say that. I got to tell you something. When we started this work in 2021, we thought all we needed to do was find fraud and show everybody. We figured everybody would get mad and get involved. You do not win with the evidence. I can promise you that. I've shown more data like this, open and shut cases to John Merrill. I've shown this all over the country. You do not win with the evidence. That's why President Trump said this. In August, a year ago, I'm going to lead a movement to get rid of mail-in ballots. And also, while we're at it, highly inaccurate, very expensive, and seriously controversial voting machines. Blah, 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 which cost 10 times more, blah, blah, blah. This is like an essay for the Trump, to write an essay like this. Why didn't he just say, I'm going to write an executive order and make this problem fixed? Because he can't. Because the Constitution is explicit that the states determine the manner of voting. Each state determines its manner. Except it's complicated. Because there are two federal laws. There's the NVRA, National Voter Registration Act, 1993, and Help America Vote Act, 2002. And what happened is states are accepting grant money through those acts from the federal government. But the grant money they accept comes with strings. So this federal government is saying, we want you to maintain your voter rolls in a certain way, and we'll give you the money to pay for it. And the states say, okay, so they're taking the money, but they're not complying with the rules. That's why the DOJ is after Alabama right now, because we've been giving you money, but you're not complying with the rules. Your voter rolls are illegal. That's why your state won't give it to them, because it basically says, now you might say, well, gee, Dr. Frank, you have the rolls. Why don't you just give it to them? I could. And I know they already have them. The point is, the Secretary of State has to give the official rolls to the DOJ, and it's essentially an admission of noncompliance. It's an admission of guilt that, yeah.
I just want to ask you a question, Dr. Frank. It's just burning inside me. I just want your opinion on this. It seems to me, okay.
It seems to you.
It seems to me that voter fraud affects Republicans being in office more. In other words, I feel like if we had clean elections, we probably would have 30% more Republicans throughout the country in different offices. My question is, why do Republicans give you so? Why are the Republicans fighting doing what needs to be done? Just like the Save America Act, there's probably about 10 people that are in the Senate that seem to me that are fighting against the president, like they want him to lose power, like they want them to lose the House. It seems to me, and those are the people that are the never Trumpers. They want him to lose power. What is your opinion on all that?
So my first answer to that I alluded to earlier. A Republican legislature in Pennsylvania took away all the power from the person who asked for an audit. I could tell you a dozen stories of legislators throughout the country who, when they spoke up with their legislature to try to say, we want to clean up the elections, I can give you examples in Louisiana, in Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, very red, very conservative places. With one of the legislators stands up and says, we want to look into this, they are eliminated by the Republican Party.
But why? If it affects them more with losing seats, then why are they fighting against it?
Why are they fighting against it? So I'm giving you the answer. You know, Jesus taught in parables. So I'm trying to follow his example. So in Montana, they have 50 state senators. In 2024, the Republicans won 32-18. And they had a supermajority in the House and the Senate, and everybody was all excited in Montana. Hey, we're going to do a reform this year. The first week of the election, the first week of their legislative session, 2025, 9 of the Republican senators caucused with the Democrats. Wolves in sheep's colors. So this name Republican and Democrat doesn't mean anything to me. Okay? And I got to tell you, I have a graph for everything. This is the voting record of Congress from the 118th Congress. I made this graph in 2024. And it includes the Senate and the House. The red dots are Republicans and the blue dots are Democrats. You can go online and see how they came up with these scores. The freedomindex.org. And they've done it in every state. They've tracked the voting history. And I just want you to realize if I just sorted them in by most constitutional and least constitutional. If a congressperson always votes consistently with the Constitution, they get a 100. If they never vote consistently with the Constitution, they get a 0. So think about this. You've got defenders of the Constitution, compromised people, communists in disguise, and communists, okay? But all these people are labeled Republicans. And guess what? They keep winning. So this idea that Republicans are suffering, it's not really right, because they might be Republicans, but in name only. When I was in Korea, it's funny, they have a party there that's similar to the Republican Party. It's called the PPP, and it's the most powerful party in the country. I mean, the country's really pro-American, pro-MAGA, and it was very powerful. But Hwang Kyo-ahn, who was the former prime minister, who was head of the party, quit the party. A few years ago, he said, we've been infiltrated. We no longer are truly conservative and representing liberty in our country anymore. That's why we started the Freedom and Innovation Party, which hosted my visit over there. But this is so funny, you're going to laugh. It's called the PPP, the People's Power Party. But they call them rhinos. And they don't get it. It's an acronym, right? They call them rhinos because we call them rhinos here. They're Republican in name only. They're not real Republicans. So let's have a look at Alabama. Okay, this is your voting people in your state. I reversed the axis, but it's the same idea. And I've got a graph like this for every legislature in the country. You've got some real conservatives, people who defend the Constitution. We can look up their names if you want it, but you get the idea. But you've got all these people who are not really Republicans. And they just keep getting reelected and reelected because nobody opposes them. If you go to Kentucky, they have 105% of their people registered. Okay, that's Kentucky. If you go to Oregon, they have 105% of their people registered. It isn't about party. It's about whoever's in control staying in control. And people, you can't get elected in this state unless you got an R in front of your name in most places because you're a very conservative place. So people who are Ds, really, they pretend to be R. They get elected because the people are lazy and stupid and the party doesn't put forward really good candidates, except with a few sections. And so you end up in the situation you're in. I just want you to see how you measure up to all the other states, and then I got to get back to the solution because I don't want to just leave you hanging. So what I did, I made this graph in January of 2025. The date will come up in a minute. But what I did is for every state in the country, I kept track of how many people, how many citizens over 18 years old there were in every state in the country. And I show the scale 55% all the way up to 115%. What percent of these people are registered to vote? Eligible people, what percent of your eligible people are registered to vote on this axis? And then on this other axis, what percentage of them did they vote? So what percent of the eligible people are voting? What percent of the eligible people are registered? Follow it as a two-axis graph. And so what did I say? 70% would be a clean voter rolls. So I'd like to see every state right about here. 70%. If you're above 90%, you are a dirty voter roll. Seriously dirty. If you're above 100%, that's just stupid because you can't have more people in your rolls than you got people eligible. I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, and that's not even counting. Yeah, this is counting. This is for citizens only. Okay. So anyway, that's what the scale. So I'm just kind of giving you the scale. There's up here, there won't be any state up in this gray area because that would be like 70% of your eligible people are registered and 70% of them voted. That'd be a perfect turnout of every eligible person. That ain't gonna happen. So there's nobody up in the gray area and you shouldn't be in the red area. Everybody in the country should be right in here. Every state should be right there. That would be a 90% turnout, 75% turnout, 55% turnout. So I've kind of given you the scale, yes? I've explained everything. And I want everybody to be right in here. This would be perfect voting. If I saw all the states here, I'd shut up and go back to my physics lab. Okay, so what do we find? 9 states have more people in the rolls than they got people. Okay. And guess where you guys are? Right chair. Okay, and that's after you cleaned it up a little bit. It's actually gotten dirty again since this because I made this graph back in January 2025. But anyway, you're one of the dirtiest. You're among the worst. So it's not a matter of red or blue. The worst place to be on this graph is up here. Because think of this like a clean glass of water. Let's say you got a really beautiful glass of water. And as you move the glass of water this way, it gets dirtier and dirtier. Like the rolls would get dirtier and dirtier. And think of this as how much of the water do we drink? Right? This is a higher and higher turnout. So the worst place to be is when you have the dirtiest water and you're drinking it the most. So the worst place to be is up there in the corner. And guess what those are? That's why all the attention is there. That's right. And here's the rest. That's you guys. Here's the rest of the country. It's all getting dirtier. Every state has centrally controlled voter rolls now. This is a disaster across the whole country. I'm not kidding when I say we're on the precipice, guys. We are right on the edge. And when I made the graph, Tennessee didn't have their numbers in yet. I was using temporary numbers. They're up in here now. Rhode Island's up in here. Maine is actually up in the red. They're make it 10 states. So when I made the graph, not all the states had reported yet. But notice there's this one strange state over here, Wyoming. They have clean voter rolls because if you miss a federal election, they take you off the rolls. Miss one, you're off. That doesn't mean you can't vote. It just means that at the next election, you have to bring proof that you're a citizen, and you have to bring proof where you live to get back on the rolls. They'll even let you register on election day, but you have to bring all of your ID with you to prove it's really you. That's why their rolls are clean. And you notice their turnout's about right. You can see my 70% number is pretty good. That's a good. They're a little hyper clean, I think. I'd like a little more forgiveness. I'd like to miss one and not have to bring all my identification to the next election. But anyway, I just.
Hawaii looks pretty good.
Yeah, that's because they have so many non-citizens and Dems. Yeah, and that's a whole nother thing. Alaska is so bad because they have that permanent fund that they all get, and so nobody wants to get out of the rolls because they get paid to be residents there. We could talk about this a long time. I just wanted to see you relative to the other places, so you realize you guys really are. I mean, I love you guys. You guys are awesome. Okay, but you have these stupid machines that have modems in it. We could talk about that. You've got one of the country's leading expert on this, by the way, right here in Clay Parikh. Yeah, he told me his record is 5 minutes. That's the longest it's ever taken him to hack into a machine. One of your machines. So your machines are totally hackable, totally vulnerable. I could tell you so many stories, but I don't want to go there. I want to show you what to do. I think I've given you the problem. You know what the problem is. You know the urgency of it. You know that we have bad days ahead. So what do you do in the meantime? What do I want you to do? Well, what did Trump say? Trump said, I'm going to lead a movement. Where's the movement? Okay? All y'all are asleep. You're all asleep. And what is it? Politicians don't start parades, they join them. We have to start the parade. We have to start the movement. Your power is not in sitting on your hands waiting for Trump to save us. Your power is not sitting on your hands waiting for the legislature. They can't even pass, or the Congress, they can't even pass the SAVE Act. Okay? And your legislature, I just showed you, is all rhinoed out. And they're hiding the roles from you. Your power is not top down. Your power is bottom up. Your power is in your county commissioners. That is your power. So what I teach you to do is to form a team, find fraud, and then we begin addressing and attacking at the county level. And I was doing that back in 2022 with some success, and I was winning many counties. But then, as soon as that county would stand up and say, we're not going to comply with the state policy anymore because they're illegal, we're going to run our own rules, then the state would come down on that county and say, no, you have to follow our rules. So what I've learned is we don't fight one county at a time anymore. We have multiple counties that stand together, which is why I'm working in multiple counties, and I want to form a team here. We need teams, as many teams as we can get, as many counties as we can get, all start putting pressure on their commissioners. Now, what moves a commissioner is not election integrity. That doesn't move them. They see that as a threat to them. What moves your commissioners is money and influence and power. And so you go to your commissioners and you say, we're going to cut the voter rolls by 30%, and we're paying for our election machines, we're paying for all election processes based upon the size of our voting, of our electorate. We're going to save you 30% on our elections. And by the way, at the same time, we're going to be reducing our liability because the government, the federal government, is going to prosecute every county clerk who allows non-citizens to vote in their elections in November. This is a big deal. So we're going to take you out of liability because you're going to comply with the state law, which the state is not. You're going to comply with the law. You're going to comply with the federal government. You'll have federal support. Do you want to be on the good guy's side or the bad guy's side? Okay? And your state legislature is the bad guys, and the federal government are the good guys right now. So which side do you want to be on? Save money, be in compliance with the law, reduce your legal liability, and be on the right side. That's the strategy that we're doing. But then the commissioners say, oh, but we're afraid of the state. But they'll find their spine in a crowd. So let's get the other counties on board. I've got 8 counties in Colorado. One of the county clerk has already quit the State Clerks Association. And he's in the largest county, El Paso County. And I have a whole bunch of other counties. You just kind of need to have one or two stick their neck out. And the other ones will kind of, have the way movement. People are afraid to stick their neck out. But we are at war, and this is happening now. So that's where we're going. There are 4 types of communities. There are lead counties, the ones that are willing to make the stand, and I'm looking for those. And then there are the Me Too counties, the ones that say, yeah, our leaders won't step in, but we are finding fraud here too, and that helps support the movement. They're the Don't Forget Us counties. So we got the lead counties, they're the patriotic ones. They're leading the war. Warriors for Liberty. And then you've got the Me Too counties, they're like the French underground. They can't come out at first. They have to join the fight after it gets there. And then you've got the Don't Forget Us counties. Once we start, then they're like, well, we want to fight too, but we didn't know. So they'll join in with us. And then there's the 4th kind of county, the never in a million years county. Hell will freeze over. Counties before they'll get involved. So I like coming to the counties that are in the first 3 categories. I feel like we're building a movement with those counties, and we use the 7 steps to teach you to do that. And I just if I could finish, I'm kind of wrapping it up now because I think I've been, and we can take questions. But let me just play this for you. This is a quote from Reagan. Uh-oh. I can hear it up there. It's all right. Sorry. Give me a second. My speaker went to sleep. I talked too long. Here we go. Let me start him over again. Okay, Reagan, let's go.
Freedom is a fragile thing, and it's never more than one generation away from extinction. It is not ours by way of inheritance. It must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation, for it comes only once to a people. And those in world history who have known freedom and then lost it have never known it again.
That's particularly powerful in light of Korea, isn't it? But they haven't completely lost it yet. They're still fighting right now. I think they're just coming to realize that the cavalry isn't coming over the hill immediately. They're going to have to fight longer than it takes. When I was interviewed on that TV station, I said, you guys need to demonstrate like they did in Iran to get the attention of the world, to get the attention of the United States. I said, I just hope that your government doesn't slaughter your people like they did in Iran. Remember, they slaughtered like 35,000 people there. But that's coming, and I could tell you stories. There's one more quote with Trump here. This is a good Trump quote. Sorry, I've got it.
Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning. Because today, we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, or from one party to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people.
That was his inauguration speech in 2017, and I remember watching that live. Some of you probably did too. And I remember thinking to myself, I sure am glad Trump is president, not Hillary, right? That's the first thought in my mind. And the second thought in my mind was, I'm going to go golfing today because Trump's going to fix everything. But that isn't what he said. He said he was giving us back the power, but we all sat on our hands. And they impeached him, remember, in 2018? Just like in Korea, they just impeached the president. And just like they're going to impeach President Trump after the midterms, because they're going to lose the midterms big time. This is why we're headed for a constitutional crisis. It's going to be ugly. Trump's going to be freezing the outcome of the election. And the House, it's going to impeach him. It's going to be messy and ugly. Here we go. Same stuff is happening here that just happened in Korea. We have been engineered for takeover, just like the book says. One last thing from Trump. Here we go.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason. And that reason was to save our country and to restore America to greatness. And now we are going to fulfill that mission together.
Together. He wants to lead a movement. What is he saying? Come on, Americans, wake up. Let's engage. He knows he can't do it by himself. So I was up in a bar up in it was actually a tavern up in northern Wisconsin. They didn't have a meeting hall, so we met in this tavern. I didn't mind taverns. The revolution happened in churches and taverns, right? Black Robe Regiment led the revolution. All right, so we're in the tavern, and at the end of my speech, a bunch of people were coming up to do selfies, and a beautiful older couple comes up to me. Dr. Frank, we want to pray for you. Thank you. So she lays hands on me, and they start praying for me. But she was a Pentecostal, so she prayed loud. And she started praying. And as she started praying, people started coming up. And before long, there were like 10 or 15 people all in a group at the front laying hands on me and praying for me. I loved it. I loved every second of it. And as she was wrapping up her prayer, she was like, "And thank you, Lord, for giving us Dr. Frank and that he's fighting the evil Goliath of government corruption and election fraud. And Lord, we just thank you for giving him such a big slingshot to fight Goliath with, Lord. And Lord, we just pray that you'll give him really big stones." But it's a real prayer. And we're all like in this circle and nobody wants to laugh, but we're trying to hold it in. And she closes the prayer, "In Jesus' name, amen." And so she closes off the prayer. And then she opens her eyes and we all got funny faces because we're trying to like hold in the laughter, right? And she looks confused at me and she said, and I said, you just asked God to give me really big stones. And the place just roared in laughter and she turned totally red and it's so embarrassing. A month later, I was speaking in Michigan and her husband came and she held her hand at this point and she said, yeah, that was me. This is a true story. This really, really happened. But it made me think about this in a whole new way. I'd never thought about this story this way before because she was right. Think about it, the story. David didn't go to the battlefield originally to fight Goliath. He went there to visit his brothers, bring back news to his father, bring him lunch. He shows up, and what does he see? This big oaf out on the battlefield insulting their God, insulting their nation. And he goes to his brothers and he says, what are you doing? Get out there and take care of this guy. And what did his brothers say to him? You're a shepherd. Go back to the sheep. Wow. Does that sound like today? Okay. Go back to the sheep. But he didn't listen, thank God. He went out there, he stood in the battlefield. And what he said, I love what he said. He didn't go out there and say, I'm going to whoop your butt. He went out there and said, the battle is the Lord's battle. And today, God is going to deliver you into my hands. He took out that stone, took out Goliath. Goliath goes down. He cut his head off with the sword, remember? Then I love what the Bible says. The Bible says, then the children of Israel rose up and chased the Philistines out of the land. All it took was one kid with stones to recognize the battle that he was in, that this is the battle is the Lord's, that we are not just fighting for Alabama, we're fighting for freedom of faith, as my friend John Kim talks about from South Korea. We're fighting for our own existence. And I know it's scary because government's big and ugly, but that's why we have guns. That's why we have the Second Amendment. That's why our Constitution was written, to empower us. We've just all gone to sleep. We have to find our stones. We have to find our stones. That's real. That's hanging on my front door at home. Okay. You remember this kid, right? If we don't stand now, if we don't get organized now, then it's going to hit us like a truck in November. If I told you Pearl Harbor was going to happen in December, 6 months ahead of time, what would you do? Would you get ready, or would you wait till it happened? You'd get ready. I'm telling you, it's coming. We got to get ready. So how about if I end there, and I thank you very much for your attention. I'll take your questions, or you can. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Real quick, I have a question. Just, and I do understand a little bit. And just so you know, yeah, I was running for lieutenant governor, and the corrupt Republicans kicked me off the ballot.
Corrupt Republicans kicked you off the ballot.
And I was the only one talking about this issue.
Did he just make my point?
But it did put it in their face, and it is out there for everybody to see. A lot of people are upset about that. But what I was going to say is about the machines. I understand what you're saying about it's not all the machines.
That's not the only problem.
The churn that is coming from that centralized location.
Yes.
From Omaha, in our case, Omaha, Nebraska,
yes.
ES&S, or whatever. Yeah, there's still ES&S now, I guess. That churn, though, our clerks are not doing that within the computer system.
The clerks are not doing that.
So they're doing it.
It's not even John Merrill doing it.
Right. It's
Eric,
Omaha.
ERIC.
Yeah.
Your state is paying somebody else to do this.
Well, we got out of Eric.
You're in AVID now, but only the last 2 years. And nothing's changed, but go ahead.
So, and I'm going to share this because this is not a question, but this is because I already know the answer to it. Right. So but the Omaha ES&S, really that company was started by Senator, well, at the time he wasn't a senator, but Chuck Hagel, who created, an ES&S, a voting machine company.
Right.
Then he miraculously wins an election he was never supposed to win.
Huh.
Right?
Imagine that.
Yes. And then the guy that was in Venezuela, and I can't remember, the other guy, the Gustavo Reyes Zumita, the professor that taught the engineers how to create the vote flipping software in the machines or whatever, he goes to work for ES&S, the professor that created all this. And then in the early 2000s, it was Senator, well, at that time, State Representative Tom Feeney, a Republican, who had ran as running mate with Jeb Bush for governor when they lost in the 90s. He went to a guy named Clint Curtis to create vote flipping software so that they wouldn't lose any more elections in Florida.
I know Clint personally.
So what I'm getting at is that, and here in 2010 was 8 years of Bob Riley, Bush guy, and then also, of course, when Bentley came in, Bentley, and then, of course, Kay Ivey, friendly to China and all that. And we know here that, John Merrill has had in his life what appears to be his own little fang-fang. Clearly a Chinese agent. And so we're not surprised at what John Merrill's doing. But I just want to say this, that I guess this is why in my heart and my spirit, I just, it's hard to realize how close we are to losing this.
Yes.
And we can say it all day long, but let me tell you, if South Korea loses their country, China comes in, millions die. Millions will be killed. Christians will be slaughtered first. And that's exactly what's going to happen here if we don't stop this somehow, some way, in every way we can. I don't know what else, but
you're right.
I ran. The Lord led me to run for governor in 2020 because of the mess, and then He led me to run for lieutenant governor. I learned it is the Republicans in this state that are corrupt. So I just want to say, for me, 3 years of the last 6 years of my life were campaigning across the state. I got to meet all. I know all of them.
Yep.
And they are corrupt, and they are evil, and they are sold out, and 99% of them are scumbags. And like he said, if we don't rise up, now it has to be like an uprising against them because they are in power. And like I said, the 267 they did, we did podcasts, we spoke against it, we fought against it, but most of the state was deceived into thinking that they were fixing the election problems. They have fixed nothing. Like you said, they made it worse. They made it worse. Here's the thing. A lot of people don't understand why Alabama is so important. Alabama is important for agriculture. We've got Space Force here. We've got NASA up there. We've got FBI headquarters. We've got FEMA. We've got all kind of aerospace. We've got ships building. If you were China, we have natural gas and oil we don't even drill for. If you were China and you were looking at access to the Gulf of America, what state would you want? I know if I'm a military leader in China, I'm going,
Alabama.
We need that state right there.
Yeah.
We can grow food.
Yeah.
We have a port. We have everything we need. So Alabama is key to this whole thing. And I think it's not because, there's only 5 million people here, maybe a little over. That's not it. They did a survivability study years ago, and they put a circle of the place where the most survivable place in a disaster, in like World War III, whatever. The only state fully in that circle was Alabama because of our climate, our soil, our water. We are...
Your people. You have great people here.
We are a national resource, and they know it. That's why they want to put all the data centers here. But anyway, so I'm off my soapbox.
I'm right behind you. And that was a great segue. And I've been thinking this since 2020 because I was sick in my spirit for 4 years. Okay.
This right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Former vice chair of the Alabama Republican Party back in 2015.
Oh my goodness! Pleasure to meet you, brother.
Yes. We met before.
I remember you. Yeah. But you were former vice chair of the Republican Party. So when you hear me criticizing the Republican Party,
I was so.
Am I far off?
No, I was so disillusioned after the 2 years of being vice chair. I actually went away from it for like 10 years. I
didn't make this up.
But after the 2020 election, I was so sick in my spirit, I did not watch any news for 4 years. None of it. It was all fake.
It is fake.
Even Fox, even the couple of people.
Fox is one of the worst.
Well, even a couple of people on Fox that were trying to say what happened, they fired them all.
Yes.
Okay.
Like
Lou Dobbs. But I didn't watch it for 4 years. But I remember thinking to myself that eventually it's got to come to a head. It's got to be a revolution. You said another term, but it means the same thing.
Yes.
And the 2008, this election that's coming up in November is probably going to be it. You know, the proverbial crap is probably going to finally hit the fan, but it needs to. Yeah, and you know what I mean? It needs to. And my question is to you this. This is my question, and I'll let someone else get in. Can you explain in more detail what you can say? Okay, I know you know a lot of things. What is the Trump administration planning on doing in more detail? I know you kind of skirted over that, but I want to know, what do you think is going to happen in detail?
So I think, I do know some things. Like, for example, I knew Venezuela was going to happen before Venezuela happened, and there's a reason for that. And there's a reason why CSIA was cut, and there's a reason why USAID was cut. By the way, number one funder of AWEB in South Korea was USAID. And number two funder was the NEC, the corrupt election. And they're the number one exporter of election fraud in the world. And so he's been taking actions. You saw his speech a month ago, and that speech was important. I told people when they were all excited about the speech, I said, I was in Wisconsin that day. I gave my presentation, and I ended it at 8 o'clock so we could listen to the president's speech. And I prefaced it by saying, the president knows a lot more than we do. I know some things. He's already resigned himself to the fact that the states are not going to comply, even if they pass the SAVE Act. He's already resigned himself to the fact that there's going to be fraud. And so what he's doing is he's directing the conversation towards foreign interference. Because when there's foreign interference, he has executive authority to step in, declare a state of emergency. It's a state of war, essentially, when another country. Why do you think he mentioned China? And by the way, when he gave that speech, I did an interview with Huang Qiuan on, it's 14 hours difference there, so they're daytime when we were nighttime. He's parked outside of Seoul Stadium with a huge LED screen, and there are 50,000 people shouting, Dr. Frank, Dr. Frank. I did an interview with right after the president's speech, but what did he say? What is the White House saying? The White House is saying that there are threats to our databases. Remember, he mentioned that China has hacked our databases and China is involved. He raised 5 areas of concern: compromised election data, deep state suppression and cover-up. He even accused Obama of being a traitor a couple of days later in a press conference. In other words, he has all this evidence, and what is he doing? He's bringing it to light. You remember the burn bags he talked about. In other words, they have the hard evidence proving that the election fraud evidence has been suppressed. And that's why, like, Kash Patel's coming out and saying, yeah, and like last year, he showed the million ballot. That's just a tip of the iceberg. I know of more than that. Okay. And that's the way they're cheating our elections. And they're preparing. In fact, I went to the printing factory where they printed those ballots while I was in South Korea. And those were exported out of AWEB. I can go on and on. I'm trying to just set the stage for my answer so you understand the context of my answer. He's already resigned himself to the fact that we've already been so badly infiltrated that they're not going to have election reform before the election. So what's going to happen is he's going to then step in. Go ahead and read his executive order. He has the authority to freeze all the funds, freeze the processes, bring in the DOJ, all kinds of nasty things. I think that's what's going to happen, which is why I think he experienced with sending actual troops to ICE to do ICE aiding. Remember ICE? Remember when the National Guard, the states wouldn't let the National Guard come out? So if the states won't let the National Guard go out, then what if the president sends actual troops? Ooh, okay. You see where I'm going with this? In other words, he is putting in place all of the chess pieces for what's about to happen in November. Yeah, he is big enough stones. It's a good joke. I was at breakfast with him a couple years ago, and he was describing the first executive order he did on election integrity. He passed it in 2018. He established a committee to look into the Russia election fraud in 2016 thing that Hillary was complaining about. Notice Hillary was complaining about election insecurity. This is not a Republican-Democrat issue. And there's a whole nother story. I can tell you why Trump won in 2024. People think they know why, but it isn't what you think. But so he's putting in place all of the tools he's going to need to step in and intervene. But while I was having breakfast with him, it became clear to me, he already knows he's going to lose the midterm, big time. And I mean, it's close. The House is already teetering as it is. Remember, the first time he won, 2018, they impeached him. And they changed the seat, 40 seats in the House. This time it's just a few seats is all they need. You know the first agenda is going to be to impeach him. I know this guy well enough to know Trump, all he cares about is he wants to lie in his deathbed and say with his last breath, I saved America, and die. That's what drives him. That's all he cares about. And he's not going to let the House impeach him. He's not going to let that election stand. He's going to say, look, here's the foreign interference, and I have the executive power to intervene, and I'm going to intervene. And then all the left is going to say, oh, he just wants to be the king, and we're not the king. You know, no kings, and all this stuff, and social unrest is going to happen. And you can already see the media setting up the argument, oh, Trump's going to intervene in the election, and you can already see all this chessboard is coming together. And it's going to be a repeat of Korea unless the people are ready and unless the people are willing to step up and support that. Imagine where would the J6ers be today if Trump wasn't the president? Where would Tina Peters be today if Trump weren't the president? And that is where we're at as a country. We are right on that precipice. Can you imagine Trump saying, you know, stepping in and saying a state of emergency, we're going to step in because this election has foreign interference, and then what's the House that won't even pass the SAVE Act and the Congress that won't pass it, you know what they're going to do? Oh, president can't do this. We're going to impeach him. You can hear it. You can hear the same stuff happening all over again. What did Hegseth do, though? When Hegseth got into office, one of the first things he did is he fired all the senior military people. Because the military is infiltrated. I told you about the president, Yoon, who was elected in 2024 in Korea. He's now serving 3 consecutive life terms in prison, along with his dozen military leaders. Okay? Because they didn't want the conservative people in control. The communists have taken over that country. So we're right on that edge. So if you want, I could tell you, and I didn't talk a lot about it. People always say, well, with all this election fraud, how could Trump have possibly won? And I know the answer to that question. If you want me to take 5 minutes and explain that to you. Yeah, okay. So yeah, sorry. You just have to look at a graph, because I have graphs for everything. So if I show you, this is from 1980 to 2024, the number of votes that the Republican candidate for president received. So, for example, in 1980, Reagan got about 44 million votes. In 1984, Reagan got about 55 million votes. This is nationally, how many votes did the presidential candidate get? That's the Republican. Whenever I show this, people are always surprised how fickle Republicans are. We don't vote very consistently, do we? You, as head of the party, you remember that. Okay, but the Democrats, on the other hand, they vote very consistently. I labeled them in case you forgot the elections. But you'll notice that from 1980 to about 2000, the Democrats are just tracking the population. These are the raw numbers, not percentages. So, you know, the population's growing, and the Democrats are just steadily following. Then there's an anomaly here. There's an anomaly in 2002. That's when we added the voting machines. That's when we added the voting machines. Suddenly, the voting turnout in America increased by about 10 to 15%. What did I say the increase was in Korea? And if I show you Alabama, just while I'm on this subject, here we go. There's Alabama. That was your voting age population. That was your voter rolls. When did your voting suddenly surge in the country? The same time every other state in the country surged by about 10 to 15%. Huh. Isn't that interesting? And what is the common denominator? That's when we added electronic voting machines to every election in the country. That's a big deal. Okay, I skipped over that earlier because I was in a hurry. So you guys saw this graph. The Democrats vote in consistently except for the anomaly, and then there are two exceptions, Obama's first term and Biden's first term. And I already explained that. Follows trends except for these two exceptions. Now, I'm not saying that Biden had 10 million fraudulent votes in his election. It's 10 million more than the trend. What I'm saying is there are actually 16 million fraudulent ballots in that election by all my calculations. So, but that's the trend, more than the trend, 10 million. So when Trump first started campaigning in 2024, he said, I'm going to make the election too big to rig. And well, you know me, I'm a numbers guy. So what did I do? I ran back to my hotel room and I spent 2 days calculating how many more votes does he need and how are we going to get it? And I called Mike Lindell 2 days later and said, Mike, tell Trump not to say that anymore. He can't make the election too big to rig. He's up against 10 million fraudulent ballots, more than the trend. There aren't that many available. He can't get that many more votes. I said the best he's going to be able to get is 3% more. And 2 out of that 3% is merely from population growth. He's not going to be able to make it too big to rig. And how much did Trump go up? Exactly 3%. I predicted it 9 months in advance. And Trump stopped saying he was going to make the election too big to rig after Mike played golf with him that following Thursday and told him that. And so he stopped saying that until right before the election, the Republican Party and TPUSA started running around the country harvesting and getting people to vote early. And by the way, voting early didn't change the Republican turnout at all. It just moved the people who voted on Election Day earlier. And by the way, when you do that, you tell the enemy how many more votes they need to cheat. You're just giving the whole thing away. You should not be voting early. That's a terrible strategy, and you cannot possibly register and get a turnout sufficient to overcome that. So I was telling you, you got to repair the elections. You're not going to be able to win. But God gave us a miracle. God gave us a miracle. He kept Biden alive. And then so the Democrats were like stuck with Drooler, Mr. Drool. Okay. And then at the last minute, they're stuck with Mr. They're stuck with Kamala. The Democrats hate her. And she wasn't even elected by the party. And so Trump all he did was deliver his base that he had in 2020. It's just the same, a slight increase, but it's basically, he did not make it too big to rig. What really happened is Kamala lost 10 million votes versus the trend. And I've done this, you know me now. You know I've done this all over the country. I've done this down to the precinct level even. But if I remember this graph, if I take this graph and squash. So the whole country, the Republican votes for the Republican candidate. You can see the population growth in there. You can see the 4% increase at the top. But if I do that for every state, you know me now, I do graphs for everything. Texas went up 3%, Florida went up 3%, California went down 3% or 2% this is for the Republican candidate. Where did Trump make it too big to rig? Nowhere. Just went up as 2 or 3% everywhere. But look at the Democrats. Oh, I'm here. Let's look at your state. You guys want to know how Alabama did. There you go. Alabama, you went up only about 1%. So whatever you did in Alabama to help Trump wasn't very good. You went up less than the national average. Okay? So the Republican Party is going to be out there saying, oh, it worked last time, let's do it again. Wrong. That's a psyop, baby. That's to get you to do all sorts of work with no results. Okay, but let's look at the Democrats. So do the same thing for the Democrats, for the whole country. Kamala went down 3.5 million votes in California. Down. Texas, she went down. Florida, she went down. New York, she went down. Pennsylvania, she went down. Illinois, she went down. She went down almost everywhere in the country. Let's see, where's Alabama? Next slide, probably. There you go. Yep, she went down in Alabama too. Okay? So Trump didn't win. The Democrats lost. It's like you go to a football game and your team's all ready to go and the other team shows up in crutches. Did you win that game? No, the other team lost that game. She's the worst candidate of my lifetime. God gave us a gift, okay? And that's like a 4-year reprieve. We were given, and by the way, that doesn't mean there wasn't cheating. There were tons of cheating in the 2024 election all over the country. We've been finding it everywhere. But she was so bad that even with the cheating, they couldn't win. And so that's the gift. So if you're thinking, oh, we're just going to follow the same pattern we did in 2024, all the Democrats have to do is just put up normal candidates. I know that's hard for them. But if they can just put up normal candidates, they will, with the cheating, they will win. They will take over everything. And the first thing they're going to do is impeach the president. People say, well, then how did Trump win in 2016, with all the cheating? Because it's been going on since then. There's something else, too. I got to tell you this story. It's a good story. It's true. So what did I tell you? How are they cheating? They're cheating by stuffing ballots. And they stuff ballots based upon how many voters have voted. So they know how many to stuff. Okay, so what happened is in 2016, 3 days before the election, this is a true story. I've sat in the room with the guys that did this. And I'm not making this up. I can talk about it now a little bit. So these guys, I can't tell you where they were, but anyway, these guys, they wrote a virus that it plants itself in routers all around the world. And 3 days before the 2016 election, those routers all called all of our election systems in the country. It's called a denial of service attack. There are so many hits on your election machines, your tabulators, that they shut down. Their communication shut down. It's called a denial of service attack. And so for 3 days in 2016, leading up to the election, the bad guys didn't know what the tally was. And they didn't know who had already voted. So they didn't know how much to cheat or who to cheat for. So they did cheat, and there was cheating, but it wasn't enough because they underestimated Trump's popularity. That's why Hillary was going around saying the Russians hacked our elections, and it wasn't the Russians. They hacked our elections, and she knew that the election had been hacked. It had been hacked, but not in the way you think. It was hacked to prevent the machines from communicating. So the machines couldn't tell you how to cheat. And then people say, well, why didn't they do that in 2020? They did. That's why the election shut down at 11 o'clock at night on election day, because that's how you stop a denial of service attack. You shut the machines down, you reset it, and what did they discover when they shut the machines down? Oh no, we're behind in Wisconsin, we're behind in Michigan, we're behind in Pennsylvania, we're behind. And that's why when they turned the machines back on, suddenly, oink, we have 156,000 new voters all of a sudden who all voted. And 4 hours later, we had the videotape of the truck backing up to the building with 156,000 perfect ballots, all shrink wrapped on a pallet, ready to deliver to Michigan. And they're not. And you can recount those ballots all you want. You can recount those 156,000 ballots all you want. You're going to get the same numbers. What you need to do is you need to know whose name was assigned to each one of those ballots. And then we're going to go knock on that door and prove that person isn't there, that person didn't vote. That's how we audit elections. But you notice nobody's talking about that. They focus on the machines. They focus on, we want to do an audit of the machines. Okay, well, fine. But if you do that, you're not going to get anywhere. Sometimes there are a few exceptions where we've known something's up with the machines and we do a recount, we can catch them. But most of the time that just gets attributed to the county clerk misprogrammed them or something like that. And so did anything get fixed? No. Then people say, well, gee, Dr. Frank, there haven't been any court cases that proven this. Oh, yeah? How about Lodi, California, Lodi, San Joaquin County? We caught a city councilman with 70 ballots on his kitchen table. What was he doing? He had a computer sitting right there. He was looking at everybody who voted, and he was looking at his tallies coming from the machines, and he knew exactly how to. And we caught him. He confessed in 2023 in court and pled guilty, and it took him till January of this year to sentence the guy. Okay, what? 2 years? No, exactly. And that's a local city councilman doing this. And I could tell you, since I do this every day, all over the country, I could tell you story after story after dozens of stories of people who know this is happening and actually participated in it locally. So your school board races are vulnerable, your county clerk, your sheriff races, on and on it goes. All these races are so vulnerable, especially the low turnout ones. Because people think that low turnout is harder to cheat. It's easier to cheat low turnout because you don't have to scrounge up as many fraudulent ballots. And you've got more names available. You don't even need to use the fictitious names. You can just use the people. Nobody suspects that a Republican who always votes didn't vote in this election, but they didn't vote for some reason, so let's stuff a ballot for him. Nobody even thinks to double check that. Of course, John Smith, he always votes. Well, he didn't vote this time, but nobody checks, right? That's one of the fun things. I was in Oregon, and I was doing a talk like this, about 100 people, and I was bringing up their own voter rolls and showing them their own voter rolls, and I brought up a lady, and she said, wait a minute. She says, it says I voted in 2020. I didn't vote in 2020. I was in Southern California taking care of my mother that year. I didn't get to vote. Oh, yeah? A vote was cast using her name. And at that same meeting, at that same night, I looked up another person. They said, that's my father. He didn't vote. He's been dead for 3 years. How come it shows that he voted?
Yeah, or in Atlanta where they went to the thing and said that they tried to cast their vote and told them they had already voted.
So you go in to vote and they say you already voted. That means somebody's already used your name and cast a ballot using your name. That happens a lot. That shows you that what I'm describing is what's happening. And the algorithm that chooses, I know that algorithm because I have a copy of it because we put it into testimony in Wisconsin in December 7th, 2021. We have that source code that the counties are using to do that cheat. Well, not the counties, that are operating at the county level to cheat. We put it into evidence. So my point to you of telling you that is it's not about evidence. We have the evidence. We know what's going on. We have the source code. We have the algorithms. We have all that. What we don't have is a cooperative Congress and a cooperative legislatures. They like it this way. If there isn't a single legislature in this country that likes Trump. It's funny to say that. The people like Trump, but the only reason the party supports him is because that's how they're going to win, not because they like him. They don't like him rocking their boat, messing with their influence and their power structure they have. They don't like it at all. So anyway, yes, sir. Go ahead, brother.
Hello. I want to thank you for taking the time to come here. I've learned a lot. Good. You just mentioned that Congress and the legislature, they don't like change. They want it exactly the way it is.
Because they're in power this way.
Because they're in power this way. Have you ever read the Permanent Apportionment Act of 1929?
No.
I'll give you
Permanent Apportion Act of 1929, okay?
So Article
you already
1,
have a mic. I don't need to repeat.
Article 1, Section 2 of the United States Constitution says for every 30,000 people, there will be one representative.
Oh, yes. I am aware of that, yes.
But with the Permanent Apportionment Act of 1929, they put a limit on the numerator at 435. The population being the denominator, that has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger.
Well said.
So instead of 1 for 30, we have 1 for 760,000 people. So our real representation is being diminished perpetually.
Agreed.
So the idea that this is going to somehow stop, change, or be altered is untrue unless we can repeal the Permanent Apportionment Act of 1929.
You want to put the power back local, and we're being diluted right now. Go ahead.
It's absolutely being diluted. And I just want to make sure that I mentioned this because you had said
You're
so
right on
many
target.
great things. And I want to make sure that we at least kind of identified that some of the issues we have are from our own representatives that
So
don't
let's say,
represent
for
us.
example, and I love that. Thank you for that comment. You're right on the money. Let's say we want to oppose that. Let's say we want to say, hey, look, we're not following the Constitution. We need to fix this problem. Is Congress going to fix it? So if you go to write your congressman, that'll fix it, right? That's what they tell you to do. And so we've been kind of lulled into this mode where we're expecting them to fix it, and all we have to do is complain, and it'll be fixed. Wrong. It ain't gonna happen, folks. You have to do it locally. You have to take it back local, and then as you begin to take it back local, then that begins to grow, and that's how we're going to take it back in your state. But it's not going to happen from top down. It's got to happen bottom up, or we're going to have a precipitating event, like November, or like South Korea they didn't have enough ballots. You look like you're going to ask a question, Benjamin, right? Yeah.
So you said earlier, like, this is part of this conversation, you said the United States is a representative democracy.
We're supposed to be.
That's not true, though. We're a constitutional republic.
I agree with that.
So a democracy and a republic are two different things. And you might say, Ben, you're Oh, yeah, yeah. And you might say I'm nitpicking, though. Democracy... Yeah, but democracy and republics have two different ways of electing people. And so that's straight down, like, two different systems of how to elect people, how to cast votes. And so when we use that language, though, and like I hear, and I kind of get sick of it. I know I've talked. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Words matter.
Yes.
I'll take the feedback.
Yes. And with that, though, I would just like to say, this isn't new, though. Like, with all this election fraud, you might say, well, it started in 2000. That's not true. It's been since 1860. 1860, Abraham Lincoln, when he was running for the first time, there's evidence he cheated in that election. There is strong evidence. He did it in 1860, 64, and the Republican Party did it again in 1868. And so when you say that, and this is how the Watergate scandal came out, because the Democrats were also cheating in that election, but Richard Nixon wanted proof. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother day.
Good story, though.
But we have to understand that this isn't new. Election fraud has been here since elections in America have existed. And so the problem... Since elections have existed. And so the problem we have that I would like to say is we don't know our history. And so if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. And so we are going to have more fraud. And even if Trump reverses all of this, we're going to just elect J.D. Vance, and J.D. Vance is going to screw this country over again because he's big buddies with the Palantir people that are trying to steal this country away from us. And so we need to start voting for actual conservatives, not Republicans, actual conservatives. Because this country, people don't understand. America isn't going to exist forever. We could be gone tomorrow. We could collapse tomorrow. We can collapse any day. And so we need to start taking this seriously. And that's the reason why we're in this situation, is because no one takes their duty seriously. We have no civic responsibility whatsoever.
One of my favorite, great comments. One of my favorite people is Chris Ann Hall. She lives in Florida. She's a constitutional scholar. Some of you may know who she is. And she wrote a book called Sovereign Duty. And she said, we wrote our Constitution because we didn't want to have kings anymore. We wanted to be we the people. We want to be the government. We the people. But we've forgotten that we're the kings. We're the sovereigns. If you're the king, you have responsibilities. You have duties. And we've not been doing our duties as kings. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to wake you up. And it sounds like you're already awake. And get you organized, though. The problem we have in the election integrity movement around the country is that it's a bunch of individual soldiers. You can't fight a war with individual soldiers. It doesn't work. You need to get organized. And I started reading Art of War several years ago, and I'm a much better warrior now because of it. General Flynn put me onto that. And we need to organize and fight in an organized fashion, and that's when we'll win, because our opponents are funded, organized, and have decades ahead of us. So our only real advantage is that we're conservative and we have guns. Otherwise, we would have already been taken over, I think. And we have God. Yeah, of course. Absolutely. I put this graph up because this is how I think of my life. So this is 450 years of Israel's history. It's in the Bible. So this is in the back of my Bible. I love graphs. And there's a graph in my Bible, so I'm delighted. Okay. And so it shows Israel fallen into idolatry and then righteousness and idolatry and righteousness. 12 times shows this. So there's nothing new under the sun. We're doing the same stuff, right? And we've become lazy and apathetic and complacent and absolutely. And so we're falling into idolatry too, right? I mean, dude, we don't even know the difference between an innie and an outie, okay? Come on, you Alabamans, you get that, right? All right, good. All right. So it ends in the Babylonian captivity. And I used to think the Babylonian captivity was punishment of God against Israel, but it isn't. I reread Ezra and Nehemiah last year, which are the minor prophets that talk about that. When you read that, God says through Jeremiah, I used my servant Nebuchadnezzar to take the remnant out of Israel so that I could destroy the evil that's in Israel. And then 70 years later, he restored Israel back. So what I don't know in my work, I think of myself as a Jonah really, but are we going to repent and get restored as a country? Or are we headed for Babylon? Regardless, I'm at least helping build the remnant, but hopefully we're going to be restored. And I hear people quote this all the time where they say, if my people will humble themselves and pray. So let's all pray because then God will save our nation. You ain't reading the Bible if that's what you're thinking. It's a if then. And there were 4 conditions. If my people will humble themselves. And everybody always skips over that one. What's humility? Humility is recognizing the gifts God has given you, recognizes the circumstances He put you in, recognizing that those talents, and that's humility. If I tell people, oh, I'm not smart, that's false humility. I'm one of the smartest guys I know, okay? But I can't take credit for that. God gave that to me, right? Okay, so it's easy to be humble because I realize everything I am, God made me. So if my people will humble themselves, that's recognizing what God's given, and pray and seek my face. What is that? That's me finding, okay, God, what do you want me to do? You want me to go to Nineveh? Okay, I didn't sign up for this, but I'll go, okay. And seek my face and turn from their wicked ways. Okay? I don't think we're turning from our wicked ways here, folks. We can pray all we want, but we haven't turned from our wicked ways. You know, child sex trafficking is now larger in this country than the illegal drug industry. Child sex trafficking is bigger. In fact, that's where I'm going to be on Friday, Saturday, Sunday next week. I'm going to be at the Peace of Heaven Child Sex Trafficking Conference, where we've put together this big facility to take kids that have been sex trafficked and nurture them back to health. And it starts with a spiritual, basically casting out the demons that these poor little kids have had to suffer through. It's bad news. So anyway, if my people will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then, and I'm preaching now, then I will hear from heaven and forgive their sin and heal their land. And I don't see us getting better right now. I see us being pretty wicked. So I think we might be here. But I don't know, it was pretty bad back when, up on Mount Carmel when we had, which prophet was it? Was it Elijah? Yeah, Elijah, yeah. It brought down fire from heaven, right? And they slew the priests of Baal. But we're pretty bad, but God can do a miracle. And that's the fun thing about being me. I don't have to worry about it. I just have to get out there and do my job. And God's responsible for the result. We just got to get out there and do our job. So each one of us has gifts. Each one of us is in circumstances. So humble yourselves. Find out what that is. Pray. Ask God, hey, how am I supposed to be involved in this amazing time in history? We're alive right now at this most amazing time in history. This is a turning point. I think this is going to be like critical time in our history. What does God have in store? So get involved. How about that for a rant and a sermon, brother?
That's good, brother.
Yeah, she has a question. Yeah.
Can I ask you something? We're all going to be united because Democrats, Republicans, Catholic, Jew, Protestant, it doesn't matter. We're all against child sex trafficking for the most part. But you got all the compromised politicians that can't come out and come clean. Okay, but what is Trump doing with these data centers and AI centers? Trump's for 'em. Even Katie Britt and Tuberville are for 'em, but we the people are against them. So now the Democrats are against them, and the Republicans are for them. So what is Trump doing on this? I don't get it.
I'm number 297 on the internet. I've been on the internet my whole life, since high school, and building computers and writing computer programs, and I taught artificial intelligence programming classes for years. So I'm familiar with this trend. And I can tell you that we're headed for another major clash because those data centers consume massive amounts of energy, and we can't build power plants fast enough to keep up with that. And our food supply and our water supply. So what's really going on? What's really going on is we are being displaced, okay? I was driving through North Dakota on a trip like this, and beautiful farm field after beautiful farm field, and suddenly all the fields were fallow. And I didn't know what was going on. So I asked my driver, I said, is this like an experiment? Is there some university, or do you like rotate your fields out every 7 years or something like that? And he said, oh no, Dr. Frank, these are the Microsoft lands. They're buying up all the land, farmland, and not growing anything on it. They're reducing the food supply, okay? If you can control the food supply and you can control the power and you can control the water, then who's in control? And, you know, it's just like every day we are being put in a situation where there can be central control of our lives. And I think the data centers are going to contribute to that. I'm not opposed to just data centers anyway. I'm a computer guy. You saw that. I love high tech. I love all that stuff. But I will tell you that AI is not necessarily a good thing for our children because they're learning to not think critically. They get their answers by what AI tells them to think, and that's not a good thing. And you get where are solar panels made? Now do you understand why you have solar panels? That's basically us funding our own demise. Same way with Islam. So the data center thing, I'm not opposed to it in principle as long as the data centers provide their own power. And they can't use the rivers to cool themselves down because you ruin the river environment by warming the water. I think what you got to have is, and we already have the technology. I'm a physicist. I've been doing this for 40 years of my life. We already have the technology to provide the power with these modular nuclear reactors. They're perfectly safe. They can't go meltdown. They're perfectly safe. But if I was going to have a data center in my community, I'd say, okay, fine, but you have to provide your own power with a little nuclear reactor. And then that way, because otherwise it's going to be your air conditioning versus that power center, that data center. You're already getting browning out?
I mean, like, we fund all the research for Alabama Power, and then Alabama Power changes their pricing, and it's like, where's our ROI on that?
Right.
We're the ones who funded it, we're the ones who done it, and then now you're going to tell us that we can't use our own service because we won't.
You just described pharmaceuticals exactly. Because we paid for it, and we pay the highest price for them, and then we sell them at discounts to other countries, except Trump just fixed that. I'm telling you, that guy has stones. Okay, and you know, I don't like everything he does. You know, I don't like him, you know, grabbing ladies in private parts, and I don't think he's always the classiest guy. But dude, that guy has stones, and he is fighting for America. He wants, you know, he wants what's best for us. That's what's driving him. That's my kind of narcissism right there. He wants America to succeed. That's his driving force. And I don't think there's another one like him. I don't think Vance is like him. I agreed with that other comment. So we need someone with stones, but that's our problem. What did Samuel say? You don't want a king, because if you have a king, this is what comes with it. You want God to be your king. And I'm good with God being our king, but the people being the government. As long as we're looking to somebody else to be our savior, we're in trouble. It's got to be us. That's what we're doing here. How about that for a long answer to your data centers? Yeah, okay. People in Korea are saying to me, Dr. Frank, how come Trump isn't stepping in? And, you know, he's busy in Iran. And just did Venezuela. I thought that was pretty good. So everybody thinks that he can fix everything. The swamp is deep.
And some things are strategic. Like
Some things are strategic.
If he wins the midterms, he's got 2 years, then maybe he can go there. But right now, it would not be advantageous to get involved in another conflict.
Yet another one. You're right, and I don't think we can afford it. But you notice he did do something. He discontinued the joint military operation with South Korea. Did you notice that? And he's palling up to North Korea, which I thought was interesting. So we know there's some interesting fifth dimensional chess going on there, I think. And I like him. I think he's on our side. I don't like the way he treats women all the time, but I like him. And so, anyway, you have a question, John? Oh, Tony Kim. John Kim's father friend.
Yes. So you're telling us that this election coming up is in jeopardy, and there's going to be something being done by Trump, and he's hopefully playing five-dimensional chess. But we know exactly what happened in Korea. He called martial law. He was worried about the election results and everything, and he called martial law, and they cooked him. I mean, the media, everything, everybody was like, this guy's insane. Get him out, put him in prison. What's to keep that from happening to Trump here? And you're saying us. You're saying us. And how are we going to get ready within this period of time with whatever data we're going to gather?
Military.
I agree. That's why he experimented with the military. And that's why he purged all the bad military generals. He's going to declare a state of emergency. And that's why I said it's the same thing. What other choice does he have? He's not going to sit back and let himself be impeached again. The whole system's going to be against him, I agree. And that's why we're in this. That's why I keep telling people, we are there. We are there now. It is going to happen. And that's why.
See, here's, let me say this. Just to say to your thing. We are damned if we do and damned if we don't. He does nothing. The socialist Democrats and Islamists that are joined up with them, they take over. China takes over. The technical deep state takes over. Or he does something risking his presidency, his life, and our peace. We may be in a civil war. We've done that before, though. But that may be what it comes to make America wake up again. I will share this. I found it interesting that Dr. Frank figured out that Trump was going to win in 2016 with the math. The Lord spoke to me in January 2016, 17 people in the primary.
Right.
I wasn't even going to vote. It was going to be the first time I wasn't going to vote. I was sick of politics, sick of politicians. Republican, Democrat, they all made me. Yeah. The Holy Spirit came upon me one Saturday night. I've shared this, but I feel like I'm supposed to share it with you here. So powerful in my study, getting ready for church the next morning. I was in tears. And the Holy Spirit said this to me about Trump. He said, my hand is upon him. He said that it is my will for him to be president of the United States. He said it will be better for you if he is president of the United States. But it will not happen unless we vote for him and pray for him. And the Lord said, I will turn his heart toward me. And I have seen those things. Like I said, Trump infuriated me with the vaccine push and not firing Fauci. I thank God for what he did with hydroxychloroquine and saving a lot of lives through that. But still, he made a lot of people mad with that.
Yes, he did.
And whether we should have gone into Iran or not, who knows?
I don't think that was his choice. I think that was Israel's choice.
Yeah,
and they're
Israel.
our allies that we had to help.
But here's the thing. I do think we need to pray for him like never before. He's where he is right now, I believe, because God put him there.
Amen.
Not because he's the best person. I don't even know if he's a born again Christian or not, but even if he is, he's a baby and he doesn't know how to walk it out. But I will say this. I agree with Dr. Frank that his heart is to try to save our country because he sees it is being destroyed.
Yes, he loves his country.
And that right now is enough for me. So whatever decision he makes, either one, he doesn't win. You know how hard that is for a guy that wants to win every time he does something? But I
Has nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Which is why he's going to declare a state of emergency. He has nothing to lose.
Now I will say this: I will if he doesn't do it,
If he doesn't,
I will be greatly disappointed.
me too.
Because even though it may throw us into a civil war, it may be absolutely necessary before it. Or I'll put it this way: we might not have the civil war now, but we will have to fight the communists and the Islamists in the days ahead because they will take over.
I tell
everything.
people we have to fight the First Amendment war now.
Yes.
Otherwise, we're going to have to fight the Second Amendment war then. And that's why we have to do what we're doing. Yeah. I'm glad. That's cool. I never heard somebody that also predicted Trump that far ahead like that. That's good. The media is going to be totally against us. Everybody's going to be totally against us, so we're the remnant. Now, Chrisanne Hall said in an interview I did with her recently that historical studies have shown that if we can get 3% of the people awake and engaged, that we can have a nonviolent revolution. Okay, and so I think that's what we need, a nonviolent revolution. But if that doesn't happen, then I think we're going to end up in the violent revolution. But anyway, go ahead.
No, I agree. I hope we can.
I think you and I see eye on a lot
I
of
hope we
stuff.
can wake up a
Yeah.
lot of people.
Yeah. And the nice thing is, I mean, I know what I'm saying sounds scary, but I think it's the truth. It's my best interpretation of what's happening right now. And by the way, I'm a scientist, so if I'm wrong, I'm happy to be wrong because that just means I'm going to learn something. But I'm going to be right on this one, I think. And we're headed for that crisis. I have more graphs where I can show you that I've already predicted the midterms. We're in trouble. We're going to lose the midterms, and that's going to basically empower the Congress to impeach him. So all this stuff is setting up perfectly. It's perfect timing. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Even if he got the SAVE Act passed.
Even if he got the SAVE Act passed.
There's too many fraudulent primaries that's taken place that they're already taking place.
Already. Her point, and just to repeat it for the microphone, is that she said even if he gets the SAVE Act passed, all the corrupt primaries have already happened. And so primaries are basically determining what's going to happen in November anyway. And just because there are Republicans that get elected doesn't even mean anything necessarily, right? That's what I've shown you. The labels don't mean a lot to me anymore. What matters is the person. I want the character.
Hey,
of the
I
person.
was up against Wes Allen before they kicked me off the ballot.
Yeah, I know that story. Yeah.
You were destroying it.
Yeah. Oh, good stuff. I like being in church because we don't have to be afraid of the conversations. I'm not afraid anyway, but people are like, well, you shouldn't talk so much about God. Don't invite me. Because I'm on a mission from God, I guess, right?
I know this.
Yeah.
Because we got to live stream it, and even if we didn't, we record. But thousands and thousands of people watch, and they will see this.
Amen.
Even from our little church, thousands will see.
Well, that's good. And if you want, I put my slide up a minute ago. I'll put it up again. You can contact me, and I will be glad to help you get going in your community. I put that right here.
And I want to say one more thing. We want to take up a little offering for him. He didn't ask for this, but he has to pay to travel. It's not cheap. And our church is going to give him a donation. And if y'all want to give Dr. Frank a donation, who do we make it out to? Just Dr. Douglas Frank or?
Yeah, make it Doug Frank. I don't have a 501c3, nothing.
Okay.
Because I didn't want anybody to think I'm doing it for money.
No. We know you're not. And I promise y'all, again.
Just give me the money. Put it in my hand.
But here's the thing.
I had 0 on my tax return last year, so that tells
You know
something.
what he's going to do. You know what he's doing with it. So just if you whatever you can, just do a little something.
I appreciate it. My wife appreciates it.
Yeah. Hey, a man that the laborer is worthy of his hire.
There's no way to give online.
Sal, would you do that?
Yeah, I don't. There's no way to give to me online. But if you want, you can mail me a check. Just send me an email and I'll tell you where to mail it. But I deliberately, thank you, darling. I deliberately don't make this about money because I don't want it to be about money. I don't want people to get confused.
I've never seen him talk about or ask for money at all. So this is, and I've been in at least 4 meetings. So this is me doing this.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. When I first started doing this work, I told Dawn it was only going to be 6 months. And I was kind of worried about it because I still have to pay the property taxes. And we live out in the country, and it's a pretty nice house with a pretty expensive tax bill. And because we had to take care of my mother-in-law, so we bought this big flat house. But something interesting, because I just turned 65, and so I had to sign up for Social Security. And the Social Security matches my property taxes exactly. So, so I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, and I don't have a mortgage, and so that pays the bills. And so, my kids are grown, and there you go. So, God provides. It's crazy. Mr. Lindell gave me a good check at the beginning too, and that helped me a long time. But most of my retirement's spent already. Thank you very much. I'm just going to put that. I don't want to look at it. I don't like thinking about money. I think it's a distraction from what I don't think Jonah said. How much am I going to get paid when I go to Nineveh? What did Jesus say to the 70 when he sent him out? He didn't say, let's get your bank accounts together and get your hotel. He says, grab your coat and your staff and go and throw yourself at the mercy of the people that you're with as you go. And boy, was that a blessing or what? And so I like modeling my life. Jesus didn't send emails. He went town to town. That's what I'm doing. And so I'm trying to copy. I ain't Jesus, but I'm trying to do my best. That's right, yeah. Thank you for that. That was nice. Any other questions, or are we done? We could go for hours. You can tell I got thousands of slides. Yes, sir.
Did you say Washington County you were in? Washington County,
I got
Oregon?
25 counties in Oregon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but Washington County, Oregon is the second most liberal in the country.
I was
in the
just
state.
curious.
I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, because I just left there and moved here. And before I did, I unregistered.
You were in
to vote.
Washington County.
Yep.
You unregistered, you think?
Oh, yeah. Well, I asked them
You
to
want
give
me
me
to look it up?
confirmation of it too. Yeah. Sure, look it up.
Washington
Let's
County.
look it up.
That's funny. I have a faster way to do it. Well, no, I'll just look you up. The problem is Washington. It might take a minute to open it because it's a big file. Let's see. Well, do me later.
Okay.
But Washington County, yeah, I've got, these are all the counties, shift to 5. These are all the counties I've got teams right now. And what's cool about Oregon is that this is the Cascade Mountains. Right. All of these counties, 13 out of 15 of them, signed resolutions they want to quit the state and join Idaho. Yep. And so they're already rebellious against the state. And so it's easy for me to meet their sheriffs and their commissioners and say, and they have to mail a ballot to everybody in their rolls. And so they save huge amounts of money by using clean rolls. So this is no trouble at all for me getting these counties working together. But Washington County, we did this strategy in Washington County. We have people go in there every week and reading actual cases of fraud into the public record. Finally, maybe you don't know about this, Wayne, about a month ago, the commissioners called me and said, a year ago you came here and said what was going to happen. We didn't believe you. But now we see that every week you're presenting actual fraud into the actual records with case numbers, and this is getting intolerable. What do we have to do? And they invited me out, and I spoke to their commissioners. We put together a plan. In the second most liberal county in the state, the commissioners are now saying, enough. We give. What do we have to do? So this works. The strategy works, but you got to do it. It's not just one guy doing the work. It's got to be a team, and you got to have a bunch of people lined up each week reading new cases of fraud from your own neighborhoods. It's not Mr. Smarty Pants came to town. I'll do that, and I'll speak to your commissioners, and I'll show them their future. But it's got to be you standing in front of your commissioners from your own community showing that this is real. Yeah.
I know we're in Alabama right now.
Yeah.
We just moved over from Georgia. You got any counties over there?
Okay.
Now, let me say this real quick. Our live stream the service only goes for 3 hours, so it's about to cut off. So don't think it's. Oh, it just did cut off? Okay. So we're off air, just so you know. But
Good.
so, and Dr. Frank, we're fine.
Good.
So
I'm going to answer his question.
Okay, go for it.
I'm going to. So I'm getting on my hotspot right now so I can get my computer online. So what just happened, there's a new tool I haven't shown you yet, Wayne, but Wayne's on the state leadership team, which is why I keep referring to him. There's a new website. It's a new service. It just got approved in Georgia and for use by county clerks. It's called Elly, E-L-L-Y. And let me bring it up right here. Can y'all? Oh, I'm not. I thought I was sharing. I got to share my screen. Here we go. It's called Elly, E-L-L-Y. It's called the elector list. There you go. I'm logging in. Come on, baby. Okay, here we go. Here we are, Alabama. You wanted Georgia. Georgia, Clayton County. It's all right. It's working. Here we go. Clayton County, Georgia. Georgia. Clayton. Spell it? Why is this? It might be a slow connection. There it is. It just took a while to update. There we go. Okay, so Clayton County has about 209,000 people registered in it, and 18,000 of the people in your rolls have moved. And 791 of them are dead and still in the rolls. So let's just look them up. Okay, here we go. What? Yeah, I'm about to do that right now. Okay, I'm about to do my internet's just running a little slow because I got my hotspot here. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so I've now brought up your county. I got 209,000, and what's their first name? Well, that's a pretty common one. Parsons is the last name. Parsons. Let's see how that works. See if we can bring up John Parsons. There's too many. I got it. Oh, there's only 24. Was it? A couple years ago, and tried to get multiple counties involved. And they were all hot to trot about their paper please movement and thinking they could fix it legislatively. And they didn't want to do my stuff. They wanted to do what they were doing. And I'm saying, okay, well, come and talk to me when you fail, because I'm happy to come and help. Galvin Favorito's got a case going there. And you have Fulton County and the federal government coming and seizing all that stuff. Everybody's in Georgia are sitting on their hands waiting for somebody else to fix it. And they think they've got the strategy, and ain't nothing going to happen. And Fulton? Yeah, exactly. I have data, but I just don't have it handy because there's so much to have on my computer. It's on my drive in that suitcase over there. Yeah. So this new website's very cool. It's designed actually for citizens to use to clean their voter rolls. So I didn't ever get a chance to talk about Lee County. I could bring that up, but just to show you how Elly works, since I'm here in Lee, let me bring up Lee County. Take a second to populate. Looks like, but you got about it's working. 132,000 in the voter rolls. Oh, and we noticed that there were 791 dead people in the rolls. Maybe I should have looked there when I was in that county. But you see how powerful of a tool this is. This isn't the tool that I want you to start with, though. I want you to start with the merged list I gave you. Because remember, like I said, this only shows you the most recent copy of the rolls. And I want you to look at the combined version to find your suspects and to help your neighborhoods find the fraud. And then once you have suspects, you can come here and do additional research, because they got tax records in here. And if somebody's moved to another state, where'd they move to? Are they voting there? It'll check for you. And you can find people voting in more than one state, and that's fraud. And we help you to do these tools. But anyway, so Lee, if I were to say the obituary, let's see here in Lee County, how many people in Lee County you got? In Lee County, you've got 106 dead people in your rolls. So they're still in your rolls. And this one's active. Here's another couple more active. Some are interactive, but you can see all the active ones. So if I just say who's active and dead in your rolls in Lee County? Here we go. Active and dead. They're zombies. There you go. It looks like you have 35 dead people who are active in your rolls right now. So if I wanted to cheat, I could look online and see, and I could use their names, and I could submit a ballot. And you'll notice your government wants you to vote early. You're working on a bill right now to allow early voting in your state. Did you notice that? That gives people time to do all this work, and your number of mail-in votes is going up every year. Exactly. So I've been bragging on Alabama around the country. I've been saying, you guys, 95% of you vote in person on election day. Oregon says, oh, we have to mail ballots. People won't vote. Oh, yeah? 95% of the people vote in Alabama vote in person on election day. What's your excuse? But you guys are moving away from that. And every year the percent is getting higher and higher in all your counties, the number of people that are voting by mail. You shouldn't do that. Turn out in person, vote in election. And when we show up and they say, sorry, you already voted, that's a fraud case. That's good for you. Good for us to find that fraud. So anyway.
I had one more question.
Go ahead, Ron. Pleasure meeting you, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Why does not the Trump administration go after that big data center that's controlling that's feeding all the states? I can't remember what state it's in. Nebraska, right? So why don't they just go and just, whatever they have to do, shut that down? I mean, just send in our people and shut it down. I don't care. Send a missile, blow it up. I mean, why? If they're the ones that's manipulating all the vote, no, I'm serious. If they're the ones that's manipulating all the voter rolls, which they know it's being done, then why don't they just deal with it?
No, they're not. But remember, they did deal with it by shutting down the communication in 2016 and 2020. But in the end, they were able to defeat us because they have access to the machines and we don't. So even though your database, you're talking about the voter roll database, and that's what the DOJ is addressing. So they are addressing that issue.
But then that would force the states to have to go back to controlling their own roles.
That's why all this is happening. That's why there are like 13 states right now that are not complying with the federal government. Federal government's coming in saying, you must comply, and they're fighting. So even your comment is not wrong, but your comment is assuming that Trump has the power to do it. And he has limited powers. The swamp is deep. And I think, there's only so much he can do, but he's got the DOJ working for him now. And so that's the problem. We have a shallow bench on our side. And, life happens and we lose good people along the way because we have a shallow bench. We don't have all these reserves of patriots who are trained. We have a shallow bench when the Republicans were putting up don't even know the Constitution. And they think that the word democracy, wherever you went, Benjamin, they think that the word democracy is in the Constitution because it ain't. It's not anywhere in there. Those are the people that we're putting up to get elected. So we're in trouble. We have a shallow bench. So I just don't like to say those things in public, but those are like the worst. And I know a lot of them because of my work. I get to go in the green rooms and hang out with these people. And so I get to be in the room privately with a lot of people around the country. And I can tell you who's good and who's not a lot of times. And What the public is shown, somebody chose to show you that. And you need to realize your opinion is being manipulated by somebody else. And I had to learn that lesson by surprise myself. People I thought were great, boy, they aren't. How many commissioners do you have? 5. Are any of them good? No. So you won't be a lead county then, out of my 4 kinds of counties, but you could be a Me Too county, which means that when the other small counties stand up and start reading fraud into the public record, you can say, hey, we have the same problem here, and you start reading it into the public record. That adds weight to what the other smaller counties or the other lead counties are doing. It adds a huge amount of support, actually. In Oregon, we got 25 counties with teams, and only about 6 of them are stepping out because it's hard to get it organized to the point where the commissioners will take the action. But the other support counties are saying, we have the same problem. How come our counties are allowing fraud in our county? So the Me Too counties, you would be a Me Too county. What about your sheriff? You have a good sheriff here? You don't know yet.
The current sheriff has just been, he lost the race. The new sheriff will be installed in January.
And so then you'll find out. We are hoping for the best. And the old sheriff lost? He lost the primary. I bet you he's the better of the two. But I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
He's a great politician.
Yeah. Sheriffs tend to be that. If you had COVID, would he force you to wear a mask?
He would force me to wear a mask.
Yeah. I like that attitude. I'm with you on that one.
Let's just say this: he was against constitutional carry here.
Against constitutional. Oh, that ain't good.
And he was pro block camera as well.
Well, that doesn't. That's I've told me all I needed to know. Yeah, one of my favorite stories happened in New Mexico when the governor there a couple of years ago, Governor Grisham, she said, enough is enough. We had a school shooting. She's going to put a temporary ban on open carry of weapons in the state. And a sheriff stood up the next day and said, I'm not enforcing that in my county because that's not constitutional. And he was a Democrat, by the way, but he said that. And then the next day, another 70 sheriffs stood up and said, we're not enforcing that in our county. And that sounds great, except you don't win that way. Where we won was a week later, and guess what? I just happened to be there. I'm always in the right place at the right time. 50 guys put guns on and stood on the Capitol steps and said, here we are, Governor, come and take them. And that's when we won. Because what are you going to do when 50 people put on their big uglies and stand there and say, you're going to do, shoot us? No. That's why you need to find your stones, and you need to tell your state government, we will not comply with your illegal policies. We win when 50 people in your county stand up and say, we will not comply, and here are our big uglies. What are you going to do about it? Right? See how that works? That's what taught me this years ago. People got to have stones. As long as we're waiting for the legal system to fix it, ain't going to happen. We got to find our stones. Yes, sir. This is fun. This isn't what I planned, but I'm having a good time. Voter rolls are how you can prove fraud. You can't prove fraud with the machines unless you have the ballots and the cast vote record and the machine all in one place and you have full access. Then you can prove it. That's why I got full access in Mesa County, Colorado with Tina Peters. We got backups of everything. So, by the way, did you hear Tina Peters is getting hired by Shasta County, Northern California? She would have been there instead of Clint Curtis, except that she was in prison. And so Trump got her out. By the way, how did Trump get her out? He got her out by using the power of the red pen. He started canceling we're in Alabama, right? He moved Space Force from Colorado to Alabama. Why? To put pressure, and he put a stop on all of their major federal projects in the state, and that still wasn't enough to get the governor to let her out. And so he just kept redlining stuff until his employees started coming to him and says, we're not going to get a paycheck next month. And so that's when he said he commuted her sentence and let her out. that was big. By the way, I got to introduce Tina. I saw her 2 days after she was out of prison in Vegas with Juan Kiwan. And I introduced it. You should have seen those two together. There were tears. They were praying together. It was something to see them. And somebody had given me $40, like you just collected. Somebody had given me $40 for Tina as a donation right when she was going into prison. And I carried it in my wallet rather than sending it to her fund. And I wrote her name on it. And I carried it in my wallet, and I prayed for her every time I opened my wallet because I had to see Tina Peters there, right? And I told people I'm going to give her that $40 when she gets out of prison and kiss her on the cheek. And that's the next picture after this one is me kissing her on the cheek, giving her $40 that I carried. So it's nice to have her out of prison. But, I'm a big fan of women. I think God knew what he was doing when he made women. I've been married to one for 44 years. And she's a beautiful woman, but she ain't glowing there like she did before she was in prison. You know what I mean? When there's like a glow that a woman has. But I saw her for 4 days in a row, and every day she was getting better and better. She started to fill out and get that nice, that there's a glow that a woman has. You know what I'm talking about. And it's a beautiful thing. So it was nice, because this is like 2 days out of prison. And it was hard on her. So she's coming back. It's really good to see. But she's now going to be a deputy clerk for the 2024-6 election in Shasta County, Northern California. That's one of the counties where we've taken back local control of our elections. And once we got back local control, what did we do? We put Clint Curtis in charge of the clerk there. And that's an amazing situation. That's one of my success stories. I don't take credit, but that's a success story. Unfortunately, it's in California where they mail ballots to everybody. And he lost the primary. But we are working on that. And so is Trump. So is the DOJ, because we think we got fraud there. And I'm supposed to go to L.A., and, God doesn't waste a thing. With the big thing, the big shebang in L.A. that they were counting for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. So guess where the largest settlement of South Korean diaspora is in the world? Los Angeles. And I know Pastor Cheon, the pastor of that church there, well. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get those South Koreans on the street because they know how to demonstrate. And we're gonna do something there. But I've just been waiting for one more piece of data that I need, and then I'm headed out there. So that we're fighting that fight. That's pretty cool. God doesn't waste anything. And I thought I was supposed to be there a month ago, but it wasn't God's plan, I guess. So, but when God wants me there, I'm going to be there. Isn't it cool? Cool to be me. What have you got for me today, God? I don't know. Let's find out. You need to get a team. Now, you're not in this county.
No, sir. I came all the way from Marble County with my daughter.
Thank you for being here. So we need to get a team in your county. Now, I'm going to say something, and it sounds arrogant, but it's just the truth. When Jesus Christ went home to Nazareth, how did that work out? It did not work out well. If Jesus Christ couldn't start a movement in his own community, and he's the Son of God, what makes you think you could start a movement in your own community? Okay, if Jesus Christ couldn't do it, what makes you think you're the local schmuck? You're the local schmuck. You need the outside catalyst. You need to have somebody come in to help you start that. And we have teams that'll help you do that. And I don't charge, and I'm happy to come and talk. And just like tonight, you'll see, we'll get a bunch of volunteers. We form a team. I'm good at that. So if you want my help, I'm free. Let's make sure did you take a picture of that screen? Yeah, good. So you can contact me. By the way, Bannon covered it, by the way. When I was at the Fraud Fighter Conference, I arranged to have Juan Kiwan interviewed, but it was really a tedious interview because Bannon would ask a question, he would have to repeat it, Trennis would have to repeat it, the translator would have to translate it to him, he'd have to answer, it had to be translated back to him. It was tedious. So Bannon said, that's too much, put Dr. Frank on. So we did an interview the next day where I could cover the Korean. So that's where you're getting real news. Real America's Voice, RSBN, but you're getting real news there. Now, you have to watch out, though, because some of it I don't necessarily think is always right. But at least you're getting the real stuff mixed in with some of the not real stuff. At least you're getting that. Whereas if you watch Fox, they're keeping out all of the stuff you need to hear. Yeah, it's just they're filtering out all the relevant stuff and only telling you the leftovers. So anyway, that people always ask me, where should I watch? I think I would watch that if I were you. All right, anyway, I'm rambling now. Told you I could go for hours. God made me this way. Thank you. I brought a scientific toy. Maybe we'll finish with this. Sounds like we're done. This is Kepler described the orbits of the planets, and he described them as the music of the spheres. And everything in the universe is resonating. And so this is my liberty bell here. Wow. Isn't that cool? It's like rubbing your finger on a wine glass. It makes it resonate. Everything in the universe resonates. You just have to know how to turn it on, right? How to get it excited and resonating. What kind of metal? It's just aluminum. Bought at the hardware store. Yeah. And what's the power? I put rosin on my fingers, kind of like if you're playing violin, you put rosin on your bow. That way I could isn't that impressive? I can make it a lot louder. When I spoke at the president's rally to 21,000 people live, I did this. You could hear it on the whole, because I can make it really loud. I'm keeping it so that nobody gets hurt.
Are you at liberty to say anything about the med beds? The med beds, they use frequencies. Can you? Are you at liberty to say anything?
I'm a scientist, so until I have evidence and control experiments, I'm skeptical. And then when I have the experiment that shows yes or no, I'm in favor or not, right? So for example, when they came out with the vaccines, they call them vaccines, but they're not. They're therapeutics. I read all the clinical trials, and I monitored the data for months and months after that as they were implementing it around the country. And the first thought in my mind was the thalidomide babies. Do you remember the thalidomide babies and all the birth defects? Because they didn't do proper testing before they released it on the public. And that's exactly what happened in COVID and the jabs, is that they released it on the public with insufficient planning, and millions of people, we can prove at least thousands and thousands of people have been killed by those jabs. Okay, we can prove that, so that's legit. And that's predictable, though, if you put 1,000 people in a room and give them all a scoop of peanut butter, somebody's going to fall down in shock, because it's predictable that people are going to, not everybody's body is the same. And you're injecting everybody with this? Okay, there's going to be problems, right? Just from that simple. So on this other stuff, there are a lot of alternative approaches to health that I think have merit. But I think I'm a scientist, so I'm going to be skeptical until I see the clinical evidence and the proper trials. So that's my long answer to your short question. But I'm trying to be a scientist, and try to be credible. The thing about it is there are all these conspiracies out there, and they're coming true. and so sometimes you can't get the evidence you need to convince yourself, but you just have to kind of wait till it plays out. And I think that might be one of those situations. I'll tell you this: when I grew up on a farm, and I ate good food. I ate our own beef, our own hogs, our own chickens, our own eggs, our own vegetables. And I'm a healthy 65-year-old man right now, at least. And that's the right way to eat. And everything in America right now is teaching us to be bad to ourselves. All this stuff, 2/3 of our calories are coming from carbohydrates right now. 50 years ago, 1/3 of our calories came from carbohydrates. You want to know why we have so much type 2 diabetes? Because you're crashing your system all the time with all that sugar. Stop doing it. Okay, but anyway, the whole country is doing bad things. We don't raise our own food anymore. I was in San Joaquin County, one of the most productive agricultural places in the world. Amazing agriculture there. They aren't even harvesting their own crops anymore because they can't afford to, because they're being regulated out of business. Like Gallo wines, for example. They don't even grow their own grapes or use their own grapes from California. They bring them in huge tankers from other countries. And that's, you talk about unregulated food. And now Trump, the administration, talking about bringing in all this beef from other countries. Okay, here we go. You're in Alabama. You have great agriculture here. You should be eating like kings. You should be eating the best food, the best. You should have fabulous power. You should have all this, and you don't. Why? Because you're all asleep and you're letting somebody else control your life. Stop it! Wake up. Okay, how about that for a long answer? I'm just a farm boy. What can I say? I think we wore everybody out. But it was a lot of fun. Yes. Thank you all for being here. What a fun night. And call me up and set it up. I'll come. I don't charge anything. Yep.